Simpson kills those two people so hard, they stop making the Ford Bronco.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. How are you doing? It is me, Legal Vices, and this is my channel, Legal Vices. I hope we are all doing better. And if you're feeling down, if you're feeling blue, if you're feeling under the weather, I hope today's stream makes you feel all that much better. Oh no, Amanda Harris, you are not late. You are exactly perfectly on time. Welcome, mods. We have about 4,000% more mods than we had here yesterday. We've got Crystal, Alan, and Rose. I understand, Rose, you're going to be popping in and out during this, so that is absolutely perfectly cool. Good luck with everything you're taking care of on your end. Anyway, thank you so much to the mods here tonight. And thank you to all of you who have joined already. And as always, 44 people, 23 likes. Half of you get down there and hit that like button. That should just be automatic. Get in here and hit that like button because you know it's going to be on fire. All righty. What do we got going on today? First of all, yesterday people were some of them were watching the stream were kind of confused at something I said. I mentioned that in this past week I had cut my hand 5 times on ice, and people were confused by my ability to be an absolute klutz. But it's possible. And I said I made gourmet ice, and people were kind of confused by that as well. So yeah, I just it's part of the cocktail life. You make these amazing, perfectly crystal clear ice balls, and they are just awesome. They go right in the drinks. And because they're round and large like that, the ice melts much slower, so it doesn't dilute your drink. And they look damn pretty. I mean, you can make regular ice balls, but to make them perfectly crystal clear is kind of cool because you can do fun things with them. But yeah, that's what I do. And I managed to cut my finger 5 times. I have like square ones, these round ones, and stick like column things that go in like a Collins glass. But yeah. Yeah, hey Scott. Yeah, those are from Labyrinth, except these melt. I actually tried to learn how to do that Labyrinth ball thing, and I never could do it. I was never that coordinated. But we are enjoying an amazing Elijah Craig based old fashioned tonight, and as always, we have the $100 bourbon bourbon shots lined up. So when we accumulate $100 in super chats and super stickers, we do a shot just to celebrate. Today we are going in with the first witness. We've spent the last 4 weeks going over the opening statements from the prosecution and the defense. Today we're getting into the witnesses. We're gonna start with Kato Kalin. Kato Kalin is sort of for those of you that followed the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, he's sort of the Isaac Baruch of the OJ Simpson trial. He's weird. He's kind of wacky and witty. He jokes a bit, and he was living for free on OJ Simpson's estate. He is relevant because he said he heard a thump on the back wall of his building, which is where they found the bloody glove. So he's one of the important witnesses because he talked to OJ shortly after the time the alleged offing was to have occurred. Well, it wasn't an alleged offing. The offing that he allegedly performed occurred. So Kato's interesting because he heard this thump. Was it OJ jumping over the fence after having slaughtered his ex and boyfriend and her boyfriend or the waiter? We don't know if they were a thing. They probably weren't a thing. I don't know. Did he off them and come home, and that was the noise that Kato heard, was him jumping over the fence and bumping into the wall? Was it something else? But he talked to OJ shortly thereafter that, and so that's why he is one of the big witnesses. He was on this is the problem with the OJ Simpson trial. It was 9 months long. Witnesses were questioned and cross-examined for days and days and days. So we just can't do all of it. Otherwise, we'd be here for about 1 million years. But what we'll do with Kato Kalin is there's a highlight reel that gets sort of to the gist of Kato Kalin's testimony. We'll watch that. Then after, Kato now he has a talk show. He was, I guess, like a precursor to Friends. He was famous for not doing anything. He was a famous freeloader. He was just hanging out, being surfer dude, living on OJ's dime. But we'll see a bit of his personality. And then we will go to one of the star witnesses for the prosecution, Detective Mark Fuhrman. And we're going to be doing the highlights of the defense cross-examination of Detective Fuhrman. Because the cross-examination includes basically all of the important parts of the direct examination by the prosecutors, because they're cross-examining on the important issues. And the reason we're doing the defense cross-examination of Mark Fuhrman is because it was conducted by F. Lee Bailey, who is an absolute badass lawyer. I mean, he was the man. And his cross-examination is precise, it's planned out, it's well delivered, and his voice is just a weapon. And we're going to show about 2 days of the testimony. So I see us being two weeks, this Thursday, next Thursday at least, and possibly into a third Thursday to finish up the part of Mark Fuhrman's cross-examination and subsequent events. And I know we're going to go 3 weeks. So I'll plan on Mark Fuhrman for the next 3 weeks. At least that. It could be 4 the way I talk. But Mark Fuhrman is the important witness, the star witness for the prosecution, because he found the most important pieces of evidence. He found the drop of blood in OJ Simpson's Ford Bronco. He found the bloody glove behind the room where Kato Kalin was staying. And he found both of these pieces of evidence while he was completely alone and unassisted and unattended by anybody else. And the prosecution, they go through their standard questioning, but the defense, F. Lee Bailey on the defense, he takes the view that Mark Fuhrman is an avowed racist who will plant evidence to convict a black man, and he has a particular distaste for black men who are with white women. And that leads to the cross-examination of a lifetime. And I'm not joking when I say the cross-examination of a lifetime, because as we've talked about before last night and then again last week, the reason we all say the N-word today instead of actually saying it is because of this trial. It was, by my account, F. Lee Bailey drops the N-bomb about, I can't remember what the count was. It was like 20 something times. And Mark Fuhrman drops it about 40 times. And F. Lee Bailey was using that as an absolute bludgeon. He was using that word with power and force to just bludgeon Detective Fuhrman with. And Marcia Clark and Chris Darden being the black prosecutor, they both refused to use the N-word itself. And they started calling it the N-word. So OJ Simpson, the OJ Simpson trial has given us the term that we all use now, quote, the N-word, end quote. So there's a little bit of trivia before you to show how this trial can affect the very language we use to discuss each other. And that language comes from this cross-examination of Mark Fuhrman by F. Lee Bailey. So that's what we're going to get into today. And we'll be continuing with the cross-examination of Mark Fuhrman next week, the week after, and there's a slim possibility to go into a fourth week. It is that big of a deal. I timed it, and there's a particular part where the N-words start flying back and forth. I've timed it out. I don't think we're going to get there today. In fact, I'm almost absolutely sure we're not going to get there today. That'll be in next week's stream. But still, again, the chat, you guys are responsible. Yeah. Nuclear. No. Nice Trump blast by there. That was pretty good. But yeah, the chat rules still apply. N-words, that ain't gonna happen here. I know you're all responsible adults. I respect you. You respect me. Don't get me yeeted. This is a dangerous cross-examination to be discussing anyway. So, I'm trusting you all to be responsible and to take care of me. So what do we got going? We're going to jump into this real quick. But first, again, I want to say hi to the mods. Great to have you all here. Nice to see you. Nice to see everything that's going on in your life. And I appreciate your presence here. The mods are great. The chat is just simply hands down the best chat on the entire internet. You guys rock. Can't wait to go through this with you. I enjoy seeing you here every day. And if you have not subscribed, if any of you people joining the chat have not subscribed, please pop down there and hit that subscribe button, and definitely hit the like button. It's always about 50-50 right at the beginning. There's 120 of you here and 65 likes. So half of you get down there. The ones that haven't hit the like, go down there, just bam, smash that like, and we can be right up to 130 that fast. And I would deeply appreciate that. Let YouTube know there's something exciting going on so that they can send it out and other people can join. And if you want to join our members, we have 3 tier levels. Just click that join button and make sure that you have in your settings the accept all gifts, because people in my chat tend to drop gift memberships every now and then, and you want to be able to take advantage of that. So make sure your accept gifts tab is on or clicked or whatever the hell you have to do. And super chats. Super chat if you want. Super chats are the way to get my attention before anything else and above all else. Doing these things, I pay attention to the stream, I make the comments, I keep my eye on the chat as much as possible, but super chatting, that brings up bright, pretty colors, and that in the peripheral vision, I go, aha, someone has given their hard-earned money to say something or ask a question, and so I respond immediately. I try to do what I can in the chat, but the super chats are a guaranteed answer, guaranteed response. No minimum, not required, just gratefully accepted. And kicking us off is Flux. Flux is an awesome person. Thank you so much. We're coming to the end of the month. We got to finish strong. So thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Good morning. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday. Time to learn about even more screw ups. Hashtag pants are prison. Prison time. Sadly, it's not that cold here yet. Still pantless. I'm guessing probably about another month and then have to take some in-home action. But that's where we are. And all right. I think that's enough grifting here. We got our background laid out. We grifted. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notification button. I've had 3 people email me today, by the way, who were members that have said YouTube is unsubscribed. They just keep doing this. They keep unsubscribing people for some weird reason. And one person sent an email that they had been unsubscribed 3 times. So, hey. Oh, Tucker C. Legal Vice is fantastic. Found him on Kato Law when covering Depp. That's when the rest of the world found me, and I'm glad you were one of them. So thank you so much. Tina Reynolds says, sorry, dear, I'm not going to give money for someone else to drink. Besides, I can't afford it. Love you, though. Not required. It just guarantees you get a place. In the comments, like Alan Tempest. Thank you so much, Alan. Love you, Legal Vices. Thank you for your kind words. Crack mod we've got there. Not a mod on crack, just a crack mod. So thank you so much. Yeah, Tina, especially when you don't have any cigarettes. Well, that's what pipes and cigars are for. But anywho, right, let's jump into this because there is a lot of ground to cover over the next 3 to 4 weeks. And we'll hit Kato Kalin. Then we'll talk a little bit about F. Lee Bailey, and then we'll jump into the Mark Fuhrman deal. This is just a quick, 15-minute review of Kato Kalin's. I think it was 5 or 6 days on the stand. So let's pull that on up. Where are we here? I had it all prepared and then I touched it and then it went away. Where are we? Oh God, I hope it didn't all go away. That would really suck. Hello, hang on while I boom away here. Oh, nope. Yes, nope, that's not us. What the shit? Aha, it was hiding. Here we go with Kato Kalin's testimony highlights. Maximize. And go.
Kaelin, why don't you pull the microphone close to you there? Thank you. Ms. Clark. I'm sorry, forgot to ask him to state and spell his name.
Brian Kato Kalin, Brian Kato Kaelin.
Ms. Clark.
Right, Mr. Kaelin, is Kato your middle name?
A nickname.
Is that what people call you instead of Brian?
Yes.
And he was about 34,
Feel a bit
35
nervous
years old here.
Feel great. A little nervous.
All right, Mr. Kaelin, did you know someone by the name of Nicole Brown Simpson back in 1992?
Yes.
Can you tell us, please, how you met her?
In Aspen, Colorado.
And what was the event?
It was like a Christmas break, and I went with a buddy, and we met.
And what month was that, if you recall?
December.
Who was the buddy you were with that when you met Nicole Brown?
Grant Kramer.
And you know,
Did
Grant Kramer's like,
get
keep your damn
involved in
name out
some
my
kind of
mouth.
romantic relationship with her?
Did I?
Did you?
No. I said, Nicole, who lives back there? And she said, no one. And then I said, could I? And she says, well, if you do, you have to clean it out. And I said, great.
Was
And
it not clean at that time?
there was furniture in there.
Talking about
treadmill,
getting allowed to
and
live
a few
free at
other things.
OJ's place.
And that was it.
So did you make some agreement with her concerning paying rent, living there?
Yes.
And what was your agreement?
It'd be $450 to $500 for rent, and then take care of the kids. Nicole would take things off. And
He was a babysitter.
Now, during that time, did you have occasion to meet Mr. Simpson?
Not in January. I think it was in February. I don't know the exact date.
Sometime in February of 1993?
Yes.
And when I say Mr. Simpson, is that someone you see in court today, sir?
Yes, OJ.
Point them out, please.
There. So,
Thank you. Okay, and how was it you met him? What was the occasion?
oh, he came by
To the house on Gretna Green?
to the house on Gretna Green.
How long did you live at that house on Gretna Green?
Until January of 94, the beginning.
So this is the house he
January.
lived in before he moved into
Why not?
OJ's place.
I was going to move in, and I moved in at OJ's
Why not? Why'd you do that?
because OJ asked me to go to his house. I mean, it was part of the deal. I went there instead of moved in with Nicole.
What did the defendant say to you about moving into his house instead of Nicole's condominium or townhouse?
You know, this
we
is part of
talked.
the this is part of the prosecution's theory, is he was a very jealous person, and that's what they were trying to insinuate here, was that OJ was so jealous that there was a single attractive, man living on the on Nicole's compound, that he demanded that Kato move into his compound to keep him away from his ex.
About it, and it was sort of the right thing to do, that not to be in the same house, that I should probably go there, and OJ offered me his place. It was free, and he said, when you can stay as long as you want, and when it's time for you to go, he let me know.
Now, so did he indicate anything to you with respect to what
Kato's
he
room.
thought of the fact that you'd be living in the same house with Nicole Brown?
Well, they were trying to work things out, and I said that I understood. It wasn't, I thought maybe I shouldn't be a guy in the house, and I would go there. Kind of like that.
Did he indicate to you in some way that he thought it was inappropriate for you to be in the same house with her? Or you didn't like it?
Well, didn't like, but it probably wouldn't be right.
And why wouldn't it be right?
I don't know the answer.
Were you lovers?
No.
Just friends?
Friends.
Did you tell the defendant that?
Oh, he knew we were friends.
But he still didn't want you living in that house.
I guess, I mean, I didn't, and I guess not.
Okay. And so he offered to let you stay at his house on Rockingham, is that?
Yes.
Do you recall the address on Rockingham where he lived?
At 360 North Rockingham.
Mm-hmm. And what was your arrangement with the defendant concerning what kind of rent you'd be paying him to stay at his place on Rockingham?
I offered rent, and OJ said he didn't want my money, and that was it.
So he let you stay there for free?
Yes.
See, now he's the Isaac Baruch. Now he's officially living
Were you an
free.
aspiring actor back then, sir?
Yes.
And you still are?
Yes.
Did you think it might be advantageous to you to stay with the defendant and get to know him for your acting career?
I didn't think that. I never asked for anything like that. I was getting rent free, so we didn't ask anything.
Did you think that your friendship with him, your acquaintanceship, especially living on his property, might send acting roles your way?
I didn't think that.
That's the "you're just in this for your 15 minutes of fame" line.
I never asked. I was hopefully getting things on my own. But
So
if he did, if he'd bring it up on his own.
True.
I don't think we're going for the same parts.
See, this is the thing. This is way more serious than the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing. But it's horrible. But he's a funny dude. I mean, he's a funny dude, but he's cracking jokes in a brutal murder case. It's a brutal murder, and he's getting people to laugh in a brutal murder case. I mean, I always wondered what the camera would show if it was focused on the victims' families when he was cracking the jokes. But you have to admit that was a pretty good joke, though. I don't think we're going for the same roles.
especially living on his property, might send acting roles your way?
I didn't think that. I never asked. I was hopefully getting things on my own. But
So
if he did, if he'd bring it up on his own. I don't think we're going for the same parts.
What I'm getting at, sir, is this. You hoped it might help, but you weren't going to ask him for help. Is that right?
He could have helped me. I mean, if it happened, he was someone that could help me. Yes. Entrance to the room.
Those doors?
These doors.
I mean, again, he's a witty, likable guy. He's just a lovable goofball that was on OJ Simpson's property. But Jojo 6178 says he did get his 15 minutes of fame, but that 15 minutes last about 2. But now he's doing podcasts and things now, so it's finally, almost 30 years later, he's getting his fame, I guess. Could Kato make us believe he had scissors for fingers? That was a good one, Swan Lake lady.
Doors. This would be how I'd get in. My bed. So, this is the office. This is a dresser. TV.
Now, for the record, when the witness said office, he gestured to the room just past the bed. When he indicated the front entrance, he indicated shuttered doors that are shown in the photograph. I think the rest is self-explanatory.
Yes.
If you open these shuttered doors and walk straight out, so can you tell us what you go to, what area?
Okay, there's cement here, 3 steps that lead up, and you walk straight up, you kind of hit the pool.
See, now we're going to start getting into some important testimony for the last 7 minutes of this.
And left is the main house, and right would be the other guest houses.
With respect to photograph B, sir, can you tell us what's shown in that photograph?
The shot was taken like from the office spot area.
Were you uncomfortable living there?
No, it was another maid that was saying things.
Another maid
Yes, before this,
that didn't want you living there?
she would say things. Do you want to know her name?
Yes.
Michelle.
Did you have some run-in with her?
No.
Michelle the maid.
She would say, OJ wants you out, but I never believed in you. You should go, Kato. I said, okay. And then OJ would say, I'll tell you when to go, not Michelle.
Yeah, not the maid. The maid won't tell
So
you when
she
to
was
move
urging
out.
you to leave.
Since day one.
Do you know why?
Do I know why?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think she just wanted the house.
Wanted the house?
Well, I don't think she wanted someone new there. I mean,
Well, because she had to clean up your damn mess. That's why. She didn't have to clean your damn house when you weren't living there.
yeah, I can't.
Did she clean you? I'm sorry, did she clean your room?
Oh,
Yes.
snap.
Sometimes she'd come in and would just show up.
Did you ever ask her to clean your room?
No.
All right, directing your attention to June the 12th.
Yes.
Can you tell us who was in the house, June the 12th of 1994? Can you tell us who was in the house on that date?
On June 12th,
Yes.
just myself and OJ.
Was Gigi there?
She was not there.
How about Arnell?
I didn't see her now.
Okay. And Arnell, of course, we're referring to, did he talk to you or mention
OJ's
anything
sister.
to you about Nicole during that conversation?
They weren't together.
How did that come up?
It was conversation. I mean, I was reading a paper and it would come up about just Nicole, that their relationship was over.
Do you recall how that happened to come up? How come you were talking about him and Nicole being through?
I think it just came up about he was going to recital. I think it had to do with Paula, because I think OJ just wanted to go to the recital on his own, and I think she wanted to go, and I think it just came up like that.
Did Paula call at some point in that afternoon during that conversation?
Gosh, I think so. I can't recollect it. I think so.
Who do you mean when you talk about Paula? Who's that?
OJ's girlfriend.
Paula
Barbieri, is that-
Barbieri.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you have a conversation with the defendant about Paula Barbieri?
I think she wanted to go, and that was it.
She was a piece of work. If any of you remember Paula Barbieri, she was a piece of work, and she looked suspiciously a little bit like the victim in this deal. She looked a little bit like Nicole Brown Simpson.
That I think OJ just wanted to make it kind of a family thing, just to be on his own.
Okay. Did he tell you that Paula was upset because she wanted to go to the recital?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
She wanted to show Nicole that she was the defendant's girl?
Sustained.
No, is this what the defendant told you?
Rephrase the question.
I'm sorry, Ron. What did the defendant tell you that Paula said to him?
I think she was upset that she wasn't going to go. Yeah.
12:20, Ron.
12:20.
Evidence code section.
No, I know.
Tell us what the nature of that conversation was.
It was to get some. He had $100 bills, and he needed like a $5 for the sky cap, and he asked me about.
Now, this is right at the time Allegedly after the incident took place. OJ had a flight to catch, and so he was bumming for money, I guess.
I had some cash.
So after he told you he only had $100 bills and he needed a $5 bill for the sky cap, what did you do?
Sorry, Paula.
I gave him 20.
You gave him a 20, was it a $20 bill?
Yes.
And when you gave him the $20 bill, did you put it in his hand?
Yes.
Could you see both his hands?
One hand for sure, but I could see both hands. Yeah.
Did you notice him bleeding or cut on either hand?
No.
And what happened next?
I gave him the money, and he said he was going to get a hamburger, and I said, "Can I go?"
You invited yourself to go with him?
Yes.
And what was his response to that?
Sure.
You seem real excited to have you come?
Sustained.
Wouldn't you?
Again, and he took a lot of flack for this, for being flippant and cracking jokes like that one. Was you excited to take you? Well, wouldn't you be? But he was likable, but he was seen as kind of a heel, kind of a disrespectful. But dude was funny.
You seem real excited to have you come?
Sustained.
Wouldn't you?
You and the defendant, when you walked out to McDonald's, did you walk behind him? When you walked out to go to the car to go to McDonald's, did you walk behind him?
Yes.
And did you walk through the pool area behind him?
Oh. We walked to the back door
Yes.
and through the bar area.
Okay. And you
Yes.
were walking behind him, were you?
Yes.
And where did you walk then?
To the kitchen nook, out the door to the car.
And you were walking behind him the whole time?
Yeah, pretty much so. I think he was leading.
Did he walk funny?
No.
Was he limping?
No.
The limp question has to do with they were saying the defense, their argument is he was suffering from bad arthritis, bad knees, and so he could barely walk, let alone murder two people.
Car, you indicated you went to a McDonald's on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Yes.
I've been to that McDonald's.
Is that the closest McDonald's to Rockingham?
No.
Which one is closer?
There is one on, I believe, Wilshire.
On Wilshire?
Yes.
But you didn't go to that one.
No.
I've been to the In-N-Out Burger on Wilshire.
Who chose which McDonald's to go to? Who chose the place to go and eat?
OJ.
And you're sure you did not go to Burger King?
Oh, yes.
You went
No.
to McDonald's?
McDonald's.
Tug of war today with Brian Kato Kalin caught in the middle. Both sides, prosecutors and defense attorneys, pulling at Kaelin, trying to get him to say what they wanted him to say about OJ Simpson's demeanor, Simpson's, quote, degree of upsetness.
Nicole didn't let me see Sydney. I want to see my daughter. I want to see her. And, oh boy, kind of like, I want to see my daughter. And then they're wearing these tight outfits that I don't know, Kato, I don't know how they can wear these tight outfits. If they're going to be grandmas one day, I mean, can they wear those?
Was that the tone of voice?
No, it was sort of, they can't be wearing those tight outfits, but it was a degree of upset. It's such a hard thing to, being upset. It wasn't throwing things. It wasn't. She's wearing that mini skirt.
But Marcia Clark read from previous testimony and tried to make it appear Kaelin was contradicting himself.
All right.
Since
Well,
residence.
that's
During one of
hang
those
on here.
days,
We don't need
Kato
you. Shut up. All right. So that's just kind of a brief summary of about 5 or 6 days of Kato Kalin. And again, he's being witty and funny, but he's also conflicted because he likes both of the people and he doesn't know what happened. And like the last bit of the news report said, they're pulling in from both sides. He got a bit emotional at times, but as Isabella Rennie said, yeah, but it's not a stand-up comedy contest, which is why he took a lot of flack for it. And Patty G Jersey Girl says, I've never had a box pop up asking me to accept gifts. I set the gettings to, they're just assigned randomly. As long as the accept gifts thing is checked or tabbed or whatever, they just get assigned randomly by whoever gifts the gifts. If they do 5, they just get assigned to 5 random people. That's how those work. So keep spinning the dial. You'll get one day. Mortimer Duke, thank you so much for the super chat. It is incredibly awesome. Thank you so much. Never before have so many people of so little significance become so well remembered. You may have a point there. I mean, literally, OJ was the only person of any significance, but we all know their names. Yeah, for better or worse, it's not one of the greatest trials ever, that's for sure. It's certainly not a trial of the century, although that's what they tried to plug it as at that time. But it definitely is a culturally significant event. That's where all the OJs came from. The OJ Simpson jokes is what got Norm Macdonald fired from Saturday Night Live. We've got the white Bronco. I mean, that shows up in Shrek. It's comments all over. Like we just had. Was that you? Was it you, Scott, that said John Elway was the? I thought John Elway was the slow white Bronco. Yeah. But it's become a part of our culture. But that was kind of the little witty introduction to what's happening with one of the star witnesses, Detective Mark Fuhrman. And again, you'll just have to make up your own mind whether he was a racist cop that planted evidence because he hated black people and especially hated black men who dated white women, or was he just a good cop doing his job and he's being railroaded by the defense. You'll have to do that, but the reason we're showing it is not to sway your conclusions onto whether or not OJ was innocent or not guilty. I mean, you won't say innocent, whether he was guilty or not found not guilty, or whether he did it. Not trying to change your mind that way. We're going through this because F. Lee Bailey is a fucking badass lawyer. Any lawyer would want him to be their lawyer back in the day. Dang it. It's a wonderful book by F. Lee Bailey about some of his big cases. It's an amazing book, and any book that F. Lee Bailey wrote is well worth reading. And anything you can learn about the guy is fantastic. So who is this mysterious F. Lee Bailey? Well, he was. God, I mean, where would he even start to talk about who F. Lee Bailey is? Okay, I mean, first of all, he's one of the greatest defense lawyers, criminal defense lawyers that has ever walked the face of the earth. He unfortunately had kind of an unfortunate, ignominious end, but I mean, he was just utterly stellar. So some of the notable cases he worked on. To Kill a Mockingbird wasn't based on F. Lee Bailey. It was supposedly written with Clarence Darrow in mind. But To Kill a Mockingbird is one of the reasons why I became a lawyer, actually. But we'll talk about once we get done with this. After we get done with the OJs, we'll talk about him for a few days. Clarence Darrow. I mean, just he was the greatest. But some of the main cases that F. Lee Bailey handled in his life were. I know I've talked about this twice at least already, but if you've missed it, there was the old movie with Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford called The Fugitive, about Sam Shepard, a doctor that goes into his house and he finds his wife's body being murdered, and he sees a one-armed man allegedly run out of the door. He's charged with the crime, and then the quest is on for the one. He runs away from justice. He's a fugitive from justice, and the search is on for the one-armed man. It was also the Fugitive was also an old TV show back in the days, in the 60s, I believe. Could have been the 50s, but no, it was either the late 50s or the early to mid 60s. But it was also a TV program. Now that was based on a true case. Sam Shepard is a real guy. Dr. Sam Shepard is a real guy. He found his wife murdered. And his assertion was a one-armed man did it. The district court found him guilty of murder. And for the appeals, Sam Shepard, the fugitive, the inspiration for the movie and TV series The Fugitive, hired F. Lee Bailey to be his defense lawyer. So F. Lee Bailey handled the appeals, got it up to the Supreme Court, and F. Lee Bailey argued that he had been denied due process, and he got a retrial. And F. Lee Bailey represented him at his new trial, and he was found not guilty. And that was in 1954. Bailey was born in he was born like just a couple years before my day. He was born in 1933. So he was 21 years old when he won when he got the case. So by 66, it was appealed. So he would have been 33, 43, 53. He would have been 33 years old when he got the acquittal for Sam Shepard. Yeah, Amanda Harris says, did not know that was based on a true story, but love the movie. And we have this guy right here, F. Lee Bailey, to thank for it. 33 years old. He becomes famous because he got Sam Shepard an acquittal. He was found not guilty after having the original verdict thrown out by the U.S. Supreme Court. Right about that same time, he also represented the Boston Strangler. But they never went to a verdict. The guy that was the alleged Boston Strangler, he was found guilty of a bunch of assaults, but he was never tried for the murders. But F. Lee Bailey was his defense lawyer for that. And one of the most famous or infamous people is Ernest Medina. Any of you military historians may know who Ernest Medina is. In 1971, there was a court martial because in Vietnam, it was one of the main incidents that sort of led to a culmination of the anti-war efforts, the anti-war protests and things. It was the Mili Village Massacre. Ernest Medina was a lieutenant that was accused of ordering just the wholesale massacre of every person in the village, not women, children, old people, just all non-combatants, everybody in the village. He allegedly ordered them all to be killed. But Medina said he never gave that order. But he tried to stop it. He argued he tried to stop it, but he couldn't because he wasn't around when it started. But he made his defense. F. Lee Bailey was the defense lawyer he was a captain for Captain Medina in the Mili Village Massacre court martial. And F. Lee Bailey was a Marine. So he was acquitted. And he was I mean, it's a brutal part of history, the Mili Village massacre. But Medina was acquitted, and then he left the army, and then he worked for a helicopter company that Bailey owned. And he represented a couple of other military cases, and again, one of his most famous cases was Patty Hearst. You older people probably remember the Patty Hearst thing, where she was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army, and they had her captive for whatnot, and then eventually she sort of joined their cause. And one of the most famous pictures of Patty Hearst is her, with a rifle in the middle of a bank, holding up the bank. And that was one of the cases that sort of popularized the term Stockholm Syndrome. But he worked for Patty Hearst, and he negotiated her immunity with the prosecution in exchange for her testimony about the other guys. And so that saved her from what was essentially a death penalty. And and of course, obviously, he represented OJ Simpson, and his downfall kind of, though, was a drug dealer. He represented this drug dealer, and as part of it, he had the drug dealer move a huge amount of the drug dealer's assets to Bailey's personal account, and then he bought a bunch of stocks and things with it, because Bailey said, well, if you are found guilty of the drug smuggling stuff, they're going to just instantly seize and sell all of your assets. So he tried to protect his client's assets by keeping them in his account and buying shares and things like that, which you just should not do. That led to him being disbarred in all jurisdictions where he was allowed to practice. He never recovered. He tried unsuccessfully 1 or 2 times to get his law license back. Never got it back. And he basically, it's like he died 2 years ago. No, he died last year. Yeah. He just kind of got sick and died. We don't know if it's Rona related, but he was just sick for a bit, and then he died. So, but I mean, he was an absolute, yes, Korea does have post office boxes. So he was an absolutely cocaine. No, actually, the drug dealer was a marijuana smuggler. So yeah, there you go. I mean, F. Lee Bailey is the lawyer that every criminal lawyer wants to be. The guy is amazing, concise, brutal, and logical. The reason that we're going to be looking at, essentially, like I said, a full day and a half of testimony. So that's why it'll probably take about 3 weeks, and then we'll watch another aftermath of that cross-examination, because he has questions in the first hour of what we're going to be watching, that the results, the effects, and the answers to those questions happen a day and a half later. That's how this guy's mind works. He just lays this trap that just gets darker and darker and deeper for Mark Fuhrman until he closes the trap at the end. There's a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to look at for cross-examination. And again, we're only doing the cross-examination because the direct examination was boring as shit. We know that Marcia Clark and Chris Darden are not dynamic speakers. They're wishy-washy. And they were just all facts. The inflections, the passion, the anger, the indignation, all of this comes from F. Lee Bailey. And so that's why we're watching the cross-examination. Plus, all the main points of the prosecution's arguments come into play during this cross-examination. So when we dive back in, we've got 250 viewers right now and 138 likes. Please hit that like button. 100 of you can just bring us right up to 250 likes in a flash. It takes zero time to do it, and I would deeply appreciate it. It lets YouTube know we're out there. And please subscribe if you haven't done so. Be happy to have you around for more. What's coming up on the horizon tomorrow? We'll just be doing starting late tomorrow. I got stuff to do Friday night. Got to go out. I will be starting at midnight Korea time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern time. It would be 4 p.m. London time and 1 a.m. Australia. That's the time we'll be starting, and it'll be a rant stream. It'll just be a Friday rant where we get a vent about a lot of stuff, a lot of law related and law adjacent stuff. And who knows, we might have some guests on. We had last time I did the Friday rant, we had like 7 or 8 guests. Scott Cardinal was one. All right, hit the damn like button there. Happy? Yes, I am. You just might get yourself another invite for that tomorrow. Yeah, we had a good time. So that's what we're going to do Friday night, my time, Friday day, everybody else's time. And then the following morning, which will be Saturday morning here, but Friday night here, I'll be doing my unexplained stream. Normally with Farron, she's taking a week off. She's doing things. So we'll have at least a very special guest to be announced at that time. But we'll be doing our regular unexplained stuff, talking about spooky stuff. We're going to be doing the ape boy experiment we didn't get to last time, and we'll be talking about some other spooky stuff. And a couple of you, I said last week, to send your spooky stories and unexplained events in your life to me. A couple of you sent them. We'll be reading your stories tomorrow as well. On the unexplained stream. Monday we'll be doing the usual Maritime Monday. And then we'll go on into the next week, and next week is going to culminate on the 7th. I was going to do it the evening of the 7th U.S. time, but it'll probably be the Friday morning because I might have something to do on Saturday that I can't get out of. So Friday night my time, Friday morning U.S. time, it'll be the Fuck It Friday stream, the F It Friday stream as we call it, where we just grift for booze, grift for shots. I do my monthly super money bag, and I drink a lot, and we just say fuck it, and we talk about anything that comes to mind. Wacky, stupid stories, people being idiots, etc., etc., etc. And why is my phone blaring? And then we'll have a couple of other days in between. We'll get the exact schedule out over the weekend so that we know what's here. But everybody put Friday on your calendar. I'm not sure if it's going to be Friday morning U.S. or Friday evening U.S. yet, but most likely Friday morning U.S. Put that on for the Fuck It Friday and join in the grift. Throw your money at me and watch me drink. It's all in good fun. It's cheesy and it's stupid and it's lame, but that's what we do because we just like to have fun here because it's a legal vice, and that's what I'm all about. So, all right, we got the midstream grift out of the way. Hit that like button again, please. I would deeply appreciate the like. Hit the subscribe button. Check to make sure you're still subscribed. Join the membership if you want. Super chat, blah, blah, blah. Friday rants are the best, says Flux. Thank you so much for the super chat. All righty. And that is how you guarantee getting your chat read, but it's not necessary. Thank you so much, though. Always appreciated. I can wear a blonde wig and make believe I'm Farron. Keep that in mind. It may be necessary at some point in the future. All right. So let's get into the cross-examination of Mark Fuhrman after I read the super chat from Alan Tempest. Thank you again, Alan, for your super chat. Always accepted, always generous, always grateful. Cool one. 1 a.m. my time. Nothing else better to do. Hey, why not? It's Friday. Yep. My damn cat typed this as sensible advice guy. Oh, I assume you meant that. That's what your damn cat typed. I thought, wow, if your cat typed that, that's pretty darn impressive. All right, let's jump back into it. Here we go. We have F. Lee Bailey. This is before we get to the important stuff that we're building up to. This is earlier on in the cross-examination. This is talking about the collection of evidence and the important things that Mark Fuhrman had a direct hand in finding. And you'll see the The questions that F. Lee Bailey asks are directed around whether he planted evidence, why he was acting alone, how he found things, and boom, let's go with it.
Somewhere in the head area, but I couldn't see her face.
But a massive injury of some sort.
Yes, sir.
This is the discovery of the bodies. He's talking about the discovery of the bodies. And the gloves make the first appearance here.
That probably produced death very quickly, correct?
God, I love his voice.
Yes.
And probably she had never moved from the point at which she fell, from the evidence that you saw. A fair deduction?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you notice the blood on her back in droplets?
No, I didn't.
You never saw that?
No.
Either when you walked up to the gate post with Phillips, or when you came back around the walkway and out the front door and looked down from the steps, you never noticed the blood specks on the back of the female victim?
No, sir, I didn't.
Have you to this day seen them in any of the photographs you reviewed, including the ones we looked at in court?
No.
Well, is it part of your training that you observe details of that sort when you go to a homicide scene?
Yes.
And you made no such observation?
Not on the first walkthrough, no.
As you sit there today, what can you tell us about the existence or non-existence of blood drops on the back of Nicole Brown Simpson?
I've never been shown any photos of those blood drops.
Can you say whether or not they ever existed to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, I cannot.
See, this is one thing that he is doing here. He does this throughout the testimony. He gets Mark Fuhrman to admit that he doesn't do things that he does. I mean, like, you know, say, are you trained to observe these things? Are you trained to do these things? Is this what you should be looking for? Yes. Did you do it? No. So he does this a lot, and this builds and builds and builds.
And you were at one time the lead field detective on the scene. Is that what we're to understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you had two opportunities to view that body close up with the back pointed up toward the sky, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you do not know whether the back was clean or had some substance on it.
You're talking about blood drops.
Any substance.
You didn't ask that, sir. Blood drops, no. I
Okay.
didn't see anything.
Did you see any specks on it?
I did not take a close look at the back, no.
On either?
See, and just watch this. This is the brilliance of F. Lee Bailey. How he's just got, and this has been happening for a couple of days already before we get to this point. He's got the lead field detective on the scene to admit to standing over this dead body and not noticing if there's blood or anything else on the victim's back. Just like that. And he just brutalizes him for days.
Occasion, the view from above or the view obliquely?
No.
Now, you have told us all the places that you went from the time that you arrived on the scene of Detective Phillips and marched up to the crime scene and found that you couldn't really get at it that way, to going back and walking through and out the walkway and in through the garage and up into the house. And it is in the house while you're writing notes that you get this notice. True?
Yes.
Now, up to this point, and apart from what Officer Risky told you that he had discovered before you arrived, had you detected anything?
No.
No. All you had done was to observe things that had already been discovered by others and were pointed out to you, correct?
Excuse me, I'd like to correct that.
Okay.
I saw a partial fingerprint on the back gate, and I saw 2 additional blood drops on the gate.
Okay. So those are things that you saw presumably for the first time among yourself and your colleagues.
Yes, sir.
And you made due note of those, did you not?
Yes, I did.
How long would you say you spent writing these notes in total?
I started writing the notes as we were talking to Officer Risky. I made notations during pauses. Maybe 10 minutes,
Okay.
maybe a little longer.
Did you walk around the apartment and make your observations there before, I should say the condominium, before or after you made your notes?
I made a few notations, but I think pretty much before.
Well, I'm not sure I understand your answer.
Well,
Did you do some before and some after, all before or all after?
yes, I remember writing the beginning of the notes when talking to Sergeant Rossi and Officer Risky. And then as we started
Yes.
walking, I wasn't writing notes as we were walking.
This is
If we
Bailey
paused, I'd
questioning him.
make a notation. And then I caught up on the notes inside.
Okay, so you're making little rough notes and then sat down and wrote the 3 pages we've been shown.
No, I was writing the 3 pages. I just wasn't able to stop and write them.
Had you noticed a telephone in the kitchen?
Yes.
Were you interested in who it was who had last spoken with the victim, the female victim who lived on the premises?
At that early in the investigation, it hadn't occurred to me, no.
It hadn't occurred to you to try to get in touch with whoever had last talked to her before her death?
No.
See, this is just the dismantling thing. These facts, like, okay, someone obviously talked to the victim. Who was the last person to talk to them on the phone? Were you interested as the lead field detective? No. He just picks apart his investigation, just act by act by act, and it leads to this brilliant picture of an absolute incompetent guy who's just wandering around, looking at what other people have already found and not caring enough to even look as the lead field guy, whether there's blood on the back, to worry about who was, back then it was star 69. Remember that? You dial star 69 and it would redial the last number that came in.
You knew, of course, that if you were able to do that, that would establish the last moment at which she was alive. True? Or could establish?
I think that would be a possibility.
Well, if somebody was talking to her on the phone, that would lead to a fair inference that she was a living person, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?
If I could identify her voice on the phone.
I'll just assume.
That's the nice way of asking. Well, if she was talking on the phone, she was alive, right? Because that was the deal that she had left her glasses. She had left her sunglasses at this restaurant and was calling the restaurant. And that's where Ron Goldman, who worked at the restaurant, was bringing the sunglasses over to her after he got off work. And that's where he ended. So that's what all this telephone stuff is on. But you didn't care. You didn't check who she called last. You didn't check what time she called last. She had to have been alive if she's on the phone.
Assume that somebody who knew her was talking to her on the phone, like her mother, for instance, at 9:44 p.m. If you could have learned that, Officer Fuhrman, that would have helped you insofar as time of death, would it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and another thing we talked about in the opening statements, which they showed, the prosecution, they determined the time of death by the fact that Nicole Brown Simpson's dog was barking at roughly 9:30 p.m. That was it. That's how they scientifically determined the time of death. So that's what he's going to, if you knew she was on a phone call at 9:44, she had to have obviously been alive at 9:44, but he didn't care enough to check.
Between 9:44 and when the bodies were discovered at midnight.
Yes.
True?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you think to pick up the phone and punch
Correct.
the redial button?
I wouldn't have picked up the phone, sir.
Did you think to do that?
No, I didn't.
Was there any rule of your department that says you couldn't do that, to find out who she had last dialed?
Well, I wouldn't have wanted to pick up the phone before it had been printed.
Well, weren't you aware that Risky had already been using it to call the station?
No, sir.
He didn't tell you that?
No.
Okay. And you had no interest in the fact that a speed dial mechanism might have directly called the parents of the two children or the father of the two children been taken away?
At that time, no.
Did not? Okay. Were you engaged to any degree in an effort to try to figure out who might have committed these homicides?
No, sir.
Listen to that answer again. Listen to that. Were you engaged in any effort to find out who committed this crime? And he just flat out says no.
Engaged to any degree in an effort to try to figure out who might have committed these homicides?
No, sir.
Well, were you trained to look initially when a homicide occurs? Statistically, who might the perpetrators likely be?
I don't know, sir.
Relatives, friends, people close in, as opposed to total strangers. Isn't that an area where you always look, Detective Fuhrman?
When you have someone that doesn't appear to be a resident, no. That's also one of the victims.
Didn't you know that Nicole Brown Simpson lived in that home?
I didn't know that was Nicole Brown Simpson at that point.
You knew it was Nicole Brown Simpson at 1:05 a.m. when Detective Phillips told you that, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Did he tell you this is Nicole Brown Simpson, a victim?
No, he said it might be. We believe it is.
Did you ever?
See, this is the arrogance of this detective, and oftentimes in other witnesses. You start playing with words with a word master like F. Lee Bailey, and you're gonna fucking lose that, and he loses hard. You know, he's trying to be the arrogant cop. He's the superstar. He's found all the evidence. He didn't tell me it was Nicole Brown Simpson. He said it might be, and he thought it might be because we're at her goddamn house. And Bailey's having none of it.
Detective Phillips told you that, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Did he tell you this is Nicole Brown Simpson, a victim?
No, he said it might be. We believe it is.
Did you ever testify on a prior occasion that he told you it was, without equivocation?
Could have been.
You might have.
And here he's just admitted he's not telling. God, this guy is a fuckwit. And this is his testimony was kind of when I said, all right, I know that he's going to get an acquittal. This was the turning point for me, clearly. He's just, and F. Lee Bailey is the classic lawyer that he does not ask a question unless he knows the answer and can prove the answer. And Fuhrman should have known that. But in two questions, he's got him to say, at 104, whatever, Detective Van Adder, whoever was told you that this was Nicole Brown Simpson. No, you didn't tell me it was Nicole Brown Simpson. He said it might be. And the very next question is, didn't you testify before unequivocally that he told you it was Nicole Brown Simpson? Might have done. So he's just admitted, F. Lee Bailey, just by being equally antagonistic, has got him to admit that what he said in the previous sentence was incorrect. He's contradicted himself in the space of two sentences.
Testify to that, and if you did, you now say that was wrong.
No, I'm saying that nobody knew it was Nicole Brown Simpson. They assumed it was.
Was there ever a point prior to your being relieved when you took it to be the fact that this was Nicole Brown Simpson, the victim who lived in the house upon whose premises the bodies were found?
I personally could not conclude that. No.
Did not conclude that. You still thought it might be a passerby?
No, we did not know the whereabouts of Nicole Brown Simpson, and nobody had verified that.
Did you know who lived in the house?
Nicole Brown Simpson.
Did you know that there were children in the house with no mother when the police got there?
Yes, sir.
And that didn't lead you to conclude that Nicole was out on the walk.
I had no knowledge of what the children were asked.
Did you have any interest at all in the identity of the male victim?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do about trying to learn that identity?
I could do nothing.
You could do nothing. Now, are you talking before 2:50 a.m. when you'd been on the job for 40 minutes or after?
Either.
Either. Why could you do nothing prior to the time you were relieved?
Prior to, I couldn't approach the bodies and look for identification. And afterwards, it was no longer my case.
All right. You couldn't approach the bodies, you mean you couldn't disturb them to go for a walk?
That's correct.
Could you have asked neighbors to view the bodies and see if anyone recognized the victim?
If we had a Polaroid,
No. Could you have asked neighbors to come and look?
I would not have asked neighbors to enter a crime
You wouldn't do
scene.
that?
No, sir.
Okay. Could you have?
See, again, he knows he's going to be evasive. So he's asking the questions in a way that makes him look like an asshole when he's evasive. Could you have asked the neighbors to come over? If I had a Polaroid? No. Could you have asked them to come over? I wouldn't have done it. So he said, I didn't ask if you, this is the read between the lines question. I didn't ask you if you would have done it. I asked you if you could have done it. That's between the lines. And that makes the jury go, all right, he could have said, yes, I could have done it, but I didn't. But no, now he's being an evasive asshole cop, and we don't like the evasive asshole cop. So just by leaving it, and he does, you'll notice as we go through this, when Bailey knows he's done something like he just did, when he's caught him being evasive, he doesn't ask that last question. He doesn't ask that's not what I asked. I asked, did you do this? I didn't ask if you could do it. I asked, did you do it? He doesn't ask that. He lets it sit, and then he will make these comments. Listen to him make these comments as it goes along. Whenever he gets Fuhrman to say something stupid or contradictory or very bad for his image, he'll just say things like, okay. He'll make those kind of affirming noises, those sarcastic, affirming noises.
If we had a Polaroid,
No. Could you have asked neighbors to come and look?
I would not have asked neighbors to enter a crime
You wouldn't do
scene.
that?
No, sir.
Okay. Could you have checked
Okay.
cars in the neighborhood on the off?
See how he did? He's like, yeah, okay. You wouldn't have done it, even though we all know I didn't ask you that question. Okay. All right. Next question. We'll move on because you've just made an ass of yourself.
Chance that this male victim had driven to the scene as opposed to walking.
Had I kept the case, I'm sure that would have been done.
But as of 2:50, you hadn't done that either, had you?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, from 2:50 until 4:05, as I understand your direct testimony, you went to the intersection
Ouch.
of Dorothy and Bundy and stood there
That's correct.
for 65, 75 minutes. You
He stood there in one place on the street for 65 minutes, being the lead field investigator on scene.
stood at the intersection waiting for your replacement. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what did Detective Phillips do during that 75-minute period?
Stand there and wait with me.
The two of you for 75 minutes stood stock still, or did you wander around a bit?
Oh, we could have wandered around a little bit on the street, but predominantly stayed in that general area.
Did you go back to the crime scene?
No.
Did you do any more observations?
At one time, I did make an observation from the north residence.
Oh. I don't recall.
We stood there for 75 minutes. You didn't do anything? No, we did. Well, actually, we did. Oh, okay. Well, so that's one of the things I love his verbiage. I love the words he uses, the phrasing he uses, but I also just love these deals like, oh, you just fucking contradicted yourself again. Continue telling us after you've just told us you did nothing for 75 minutes. Now tell us what you were actually doing during that 75 minutes rather than just standing there.
Crime scene.
No.
Did you do any more observations?
At one time, I did make an observation from the north residence.
Oh. I don't recall you mentioning that in your direct examination, did you?
I believe it did, yes, sir.
You did?
Yes.
Well, tell us about it. What did you do from the north residence?
Lieutenant Spangler had walked to the north residence of 875 South Bundy and looked between the iron fence that was about 3 or 4 feet from the feet or buttocks area of the male victim. And he noticed a portion of bare skin. And he said, you can see some type of a wound there. And he directed me to go over there, and I did. And I looked at it, and it appeared to be a laceration of some sort.
Where?
I believe it was on his side or his back.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And where were you standing when you observed that?
There's a walkway that goes on the north side of the white wrought iron fence that separates those two residences between 875 and the one to the north.
Whose property were you standing on, as you understand it, when you made the observation with Lieutenant Spangler?
I don't know.
You know what time it was when you made that observation?
Probably somewhere right after 3:30.
Long after you were off the case then?
Yes.
All right. Well, then you did not spend the entire time down at the intersection waiting for Messrs. Van Adder and Lang.
Except for that, no.
All right.
See, he's gone from I did nothing for 75 minutes. And then just in the space of 2 minutes, Bailey gets him to admit that, well, we were actually kind of checking out the body, which is really not what we just said. So I basically lied a minute ago. This happens again and again and again.
Tell me how it occurred that Lieutenant Spangler took you up there as a detective no longer on the case to make this observation. Did he come to you at the intersection?
Yes.
And what did he say?
Well, he just went up to view the scene from the north residence, so he didn't disturb it.
How long had he been there, if you know?
I don't know, sir.
You didn't see him arrive?
I don't know when he arrived, no.
Did he arrive after you or before you?
After.
Okay. But as to the time, you don't know.
I do not.
Okay. All right, so he said something to you about a view. Did he invite you or direct you? He was your boss, wasn't he?
He directed me. He said that there was some sort of a wound on the male victim. It's visible.
Okay. So you walked back up Bundy,
Mm-hmm.
where the bloody paw prints were.
No,
Yes,
Where
the
did you
dog
walk?
had walked through
I just
the
walked
blood.
up the street and then entered the north residence.
You stayed off the sidewalk,
Yes, sir.
walked up the street,
Yes.
and walked around what we call the fence, against which the male victim's body was kind of crumpled.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how far into the property did you go? How many rungs of the fence would you estimate? Vertical one.
Where the male victim was.
Okay. Can you place yourself with respect to the fence?
Directly to the north of the fence where the victim was.
How long did you spend there?
5 seconds.
How long was Lieutenant Spangler there with you, if he was?
He wasn't, but when he walked over there, I think he was just there for a few moments.
When you walked up the street, was he walking beside you?
I don't recall if he did or he didn't.
Did he come with you to the location to whose view he had commended you?
I don't believe so, no.
See, now this is the beginning of what I was talking about earlier, where he's getting him to admit that he was alone when all of the important discoveries are made. He's just asking him just innocuous questions and getting him comfortable admitting he was alone at key times. David Watkins, was this before they discovered the tapes of him saying racist things? Well, it's a few days later we get into this. I mean, just a couple of days after this is when they already knew what he had said. But yeah, we'll kind of bring up the timeline here in just a minute. But yeah, so it's only a couple of days after this they begin questioning him about the N bombs. Oh, get Eve Barlow's rotten crotch super chat here. Then we'll jump right back into it. Ever get an itchy butthole and think, oh no, I'm gonna have to scratch it in a minute, only to be saved by a ripper of a fart that scratches it for you? FML. Thank you for deep thoughts, Eve Barlow's rotten crotch. That was a non sequitur. Thanks, I guess. I'm gonna jump right back into the testimony here.
All right, you believe you were alone at that point?
Yes.
You walked in.
He was
You have
alone.
your little flashlight?
Yes.
Did you use it?
Oh, and he
Yes.
keeps calling, I mean, it is a small flashlight, but he keeps calling it your little flashlight, which annoys the shit out of Fuhrman later.
Were there any other lights being shown on the area at that time?
No.
Was anybody else on the crime scene near the body inside the fence?
No.
Was anybody next to the fence on either side?
No.
Was anybody accompanying you in any way for
No.
that visit?
No, sir.
And how close to you was the nearest detective or officer, as you remember?
On the street.
On the street.
Yes.
So that would be what, 20 feet? At least?
Probably longer than that.
More than that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And you think that you were there for about 5 seconds?
Just long enough to look at the wound.
Okay. And then where did you go?
Just went back to the street.
And?
I made a comment to Lieutenant Spangler. It looks like a laceration.
Okay. Is that all that you said?
That's all I said.
You say anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you then go back to the intersection?
Yes.
Now, you had been gone from the intersection less than what? 3 or 4 minutes?
I don't even think that long, sir.
And did you stay there with Detective Phillips until Detective Van Adder arrived at about 4:05?
Yes.
Did you talk to Detective Phillips about the case?
I don't recall talking about the case, no.
Did you talk to him about the fact that you fellas were no longer on the case?
No.
Did you talk at all, or did you just stand there for an hour?
Well, I talked, but I don't recall talking about this case.
Is it fair to say that absolutely no detecting went on from 2:50 until 4:05, except?
I just love that question. when he was talking about him standing there for oh God, almost a little over I guess about 75 minutes. So while you, detective, are standing there from this time, can we assume there was no detecting going on, detective? See, this is why I love F. Lee Bailey. It's just the way he uses language innocently but crushingly at the same time. I love that.
Did you talk at all, or did you just stand there for an hour?
Wow.
Well, I talked, but I don't recall talking about this case.
Is it fair to say that absolutely no detecting went on
That is so good.
until 4:05, except for your little visit to the fence?
Your little visit. God, that's just beautiful. That's beautiful. You know, your little visit to the fence. It's so demeaning, but it's so neutral as well.
I'd say that's accurate.
Now, did you tell Phillips that this looked like a knife wound, this wound, or sharp instrument?
I think the term I used was a laceration.
How are lacerations inflicted in your vocabulary, Detective Firm?
Well, laceration would be somewhat of a tear, where a stab wound would be an incision.
A tear inflicted by what instrument? Bare hand?
I don't know, sir.
See, he's trying to be dodgy and dodge the damn question. He can't even admit that a laceration comes from a knife. He can't even admit it. And so he's going to know it wasn't a laceration. That would be a stab. And by the way, a stab would not be an incision. It would be a puncture. So, yeah, he's trying to play dumb, as David Watkins just said. And he's like, okay. And just that demeaning tone in F. Lee Bailey's voice. Oh, it was, you said that it was a laceration. What do lacerations come from? I don't know. A knife? No, that would be an incision. Okay, it's a laceration, but from what? Bare hands? It's just beautiful.
Don't know.
Somewhat of a tear, where a stab wound would be an incision.
A tear inflicted by what instrument? Bare hand?
I don't know, sir.
Don't know. When you looked at the laceration, do you have any training in examining wounds with a view toward determining how they were inflicted?
No, sir.
You never covered that in any of your courses?
Well, I surely couldn't from where I was standing looking at a small laceration in the dark.
All right. Now, you say a small laceration. How big?
It appeared to be about an inch, 3/4 to an inch long.
An inch. And you say a tear rather than a slice or incision?
That was just my impression, sir.
Did you see a jagged edge with your little flashlight?
It just appeared more to be a laceration than it did
Your little flashlight.
an incision.
And the distinction you draw in using those two words, laceration and incision, is one is a tear and the other is a cut. Is that right?
One has clear edges and one does not.
And which kind was this?
It just appeared that the ends of it looked somewhat torn.
You mean the wound was turned in upon itself?
No, I think it was a little puffy, if I remember right.
Puffy.
Okay. It didn't look like a gunshot wound by a long shot, did it?
Not to me, no.
And it didn't look like he'd been bludgeoned, did it?
I couldn't make that determination, but I would have to say no.
That particular wound.
That's true.
It was not the work of a bludgeon, was it?
Didn't appear to be, no.
No. And you mentioned all this to Phillips.
I think I mentioned to Lieutenant Spangler. Phillips might have overheard it, but We were all standing pretty much in the same general area.
Is that the sum total of?
See, that's the problem. Mark Fuhrman's one of those guys that you could go out at noon and ask him if it was daytime, and he would somehow quibble by, saying, "No, I don't know if it's daytime. It's morning." I mean, that's the kind of guy he seems like he would be. Regardless, he wouldn't give you anything, even if it's an innocuous answer to an unimportant question. He wouldn't let you get the answer you wanted, and that's what gets him in trouble.
The observations you made on that little excursion, you saw a knife wound and that's it.
Yes, sir.
Nothing else.
And see, boom, did you catch that? He spent the last 3 minutes saying he had no idea if it was a knife wound. He didn't know what it was. It didn't seem like he didn't notice anything. It seemed like a tear, maybe not from a knife. And then at the end, he says, "So the only thing you saw was a knife wound on a body." And he got him to say yes. He just spent 3 minutes arguing that he didn't know it was a knife wound and couldn't prove it was a knife wound. And then just right there, bang. That's the only thing you saw in your excursion was this was this little knife wound, right? Yes. Boom. Done. I mean, that was beautiful.
You made on that little excursion, you saw a knife wound and that's it.
Yes, sir.
Nothing else.
That was slick.
I don't believe so, no.
How about a couple of gloves, detective?
Excuse
Did you
me?
see a couple of gloves up there?
No, I saw one glove.
You didn't mention that a minute ago, and I asked you if you'd seen anything else. You say,
God, I love him. God, I want to be F. Lee Bailey. But alive, not dead. I mean, that's beautiful. You saw nothing else. Nothing. You didn't see anything other than a stab wound from a knife that you tried to deny. Nope, that's all I saw. So you didn't see the glove. Well, I saw the gloves. Well, you didn't fucking say that. You just said you saw nothing else, but this is beautiful. Beautiful.
how about a couple of gloves, detective?
Excuse
Did you
me?
see a couple of gloves up there?
No, I saw one glove.
You didn't mention that a minute ago, and I asked you if you'd seen anything else. You now say you saw one glove.
Well, I already talked about the one glove and the hat.
You hadn't talked about this excursion before, I don't believe. But I asked you if you saw anything other than a laceration. You said no. You want to correct that?
Yeah. Bailey was a fabulous lawyer. Vices is simping. Damn straight I'm simping for Bailey, man. He is the lawyer's lawyer. You know, I'm not I'm not fit to unbuckle his boots. Oh yeah, I'm simping for Bailey. I don't hide that. Whatever you call it, I'm doing it because Bailey. My three. Okay, we'll go four. My four life-changing lawyers are F. Lee Bailey, and this is in no particular order. F. Lee Bailey, Jerry Spence, Barry Scheck, who we're going to be getting to in a few weeks, and Clarence Darrow. So yeah, he's one of my top four. Not he's drunk on Bailey's. Nice. Yeah, F. Lee Bailey's one of my top four lawyers. Just yeah, he's good.
The only visit he made to the fence, as I understand it. Did you make more than one detective from it?
More than one what?
To that vantage point to view Goldman's body, did you make more than the one that you made at the behest of Detective Spangler?
No.
All right. That's the sole opportunity you had to observe from that point on the north property. True?
Yes, sir.
I asked you if you saw anything other than laceration. I believe you said no. Did you?
I thought you were speaking about the body.
You did?
Yes.
You thought my question restricted you from mentioning anything not connected with the victim's body. Is that right?
Well, I had already testified to the other evidence I observed, and I thought you were talking about new items that I had seen.
When did you testify to that?
This morning?
Okay. This morning?
Well, excuse me.
You don't mean that, do
The
you?
last direct.
Last week?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember when?
Thursday or Friday, sir.
But you're satisfied that in the transcript of your direct testimony, there is mention of this view, the laceration, and the glove, and the fence on the north property. You're satisfied of that?
Oh, I'm not sure if I testified to that or not. I think we were working up to that. We might have. I might be incorrect.
We worked up to it.
In other words, we were chronologically going through the crime
Now,
scene.
look, Detective Fuhrman, there is a problem with that testimony, isn't there? The testimony about the view through the fence.
No, there isn't.
There's a problem that's been brought to your attention, isn't there, Detective Fuhrman?
Ooh, what could the problem with Detective Fuhrman's testimony be? He's just got him to admit. This is the thing. Again, it's a beautiful trial technique, and it's one that I wouldn't have thought of. But instead of saying this, and this happened, and that's a problem, isn't it? He goes the opposite way. He said, there's a problem, isn't there? No. And he gets him to say there is no problem 2 or 3 times. He gets him to unequivocally state there's no problem. And then he gets into the problem.
He isn't there. The testimony about the view through the fence.
No, there isn't.
There's a problem that's been brought to your attention, isn't there, Detective Fuhrman?
No.
3 times.
When discussing this event in the preliminary hearing and talking about the glove, his tongue slipped and you said them, didn't you?
Yes.
And you've examined that in the transcript, haven't you?
And here he's talking about the gloves. In his earlier transcript, he said that he saw, when he was talking about finding the gloves by the body, he said gloves, plural. But then he's also the one who, a short time later, found the bloody glove on OJ Simpson's property behind the room where Kato Kalin was staying. So this next bit is all about, well, you said that you found the gloves, not a glove. You said gloves very clearly in your sworn statement.
In talking about the glove, his tongue slipped and you said them, didn't you?
Yes.
And you've examined that in the transcript, haven't you?
Yes.
And you know it's been played on video to the jury. The word them is clear.
Yes.
Was that a slip of the tongue?
No.
It was not. Okay. Now, when Detective Van Adder came, you're off the case.
Them.
Yes.
What did you do?
I waited for direction from Detective Phillips.
And he gave him an out too. Was that a slip of the tongue? So he said, oh yes, I meant one glove. That's all he had to say. But nope. He said, nope, that wasn't a slip of the tongue when I said gloves instead of glove.
You don't speak to Van Adder, only through Phillips?
Well, Detective Phillips is my boss. If
I
we're going to be,
understand that.
if we're going to be relieved,
Mr. Bailey, let him finish the answer.
Sorry.
if we're going to be relieved, I'll be relieved by Detective Phillips as far as where I'm going to go at that point.
Okay. Was there some discussion about what you fellas, Detectives Phillips and Fuhrman, should do?
Yes.
Okay. And what were you directed to do?
At that time from Detective Van Adder?
Yeah.
I had no knowledge of what we were directed to do.
Or what did you in fact do?
Well, at some point, we led Detective Van Adder and Lang to the Rockingham estate.
You say at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help us a little better than that? We're talking 4:05 now when Detective.
Yeah, and this is a detective who is supposed to be precise and clear. And he uses these great terms like at some point and sometime and somewhere. Can't specifically say. So we'll just have to see.
Detective Lang arrived.
Yes, sir.
Van Adder, I'm sorry.
That
Do you
is
want a
correct.
time? What time we did that?
Now, can you tell us how long you stayed at Bundy with Detective Van Adder before you went to Rockingham?
Yeah, Detective Van Adder got there at, as you said, 4:05. Detective Lang, 4:25. And at 5 o'clock, we left for Rockingham.
Rockingham is where OJ Simpson
When you went to
lives.
Rockingham, how were you paired?
Detective Phillips and I were in a vehicle. He was driving. Lang and Van Adder were in their vehicle.
Do you know a photographer named Rokar?
Yes, sir.
Did you see him arrive on the scene at 3:25 that day?
Did I go full? Did you go full Matthew Harris yet? No, we'll go full Matthew Harris tomorrow. We're not gonna get there today. Not tomorrow. Next time we do this. So next Thursday we'll be going full Matthew Harris next week. Thankfully, not today. But thank you anyway for that comment. That was funny.
Yes, I recall he was there fairly early.
Were you, did you observe him taking any photographs?
Ooh, nice sound.
Yes, I think he was taking photographs of some of the intersections.
Did you give him any direction with respect to photographs that needed to be taken?
No, I didn't.
Did you have any conversation with him at all?
No, I don't believe I did.
When you left for Rockingham, did he go with you?
No.
He did not?
No.
Was there anyone with you other than the 4 detectives initially?
No.
Did others come after you arrived and before you entered the property?
I believe there was a uniformed vehicle, police vehicle, that arrived just as we had already made entry, and they stayed at the front gate.
Okay. And is this during the time when you were looking for West Tech, or was that after you failed to gain entrance by punching the button on the intercom?
You mean when the police vehicle arrived?
No. When the calls were being made through Rossi, I believe, to West Tech by Phillips. Did that happen after you had failed to gain entrance in the routine way?
I believe you're asking, could you ask that question?
Withdraw the question.
Yeah.
Did anyone peer through the gate to see if there was anybody inside on the premises, if you can recall, any of the 4 of you?
You could just see right through the gate. You didn't need to peer.
But did anybody go up and take a look, if you know?
We were standing in front of the gate.
All of you.
Yes.
We had a fairly sweeping view of the interior of the walls.
You mean of the driveway, sir? Yes, looking south.
Were you wearing a sidearm that night?
Yes.
Did you withdraw it at any time
No.
during the entire night?
I could have on the pathway, but I don't have any recollection if I did or I didn't.
Well, you've never mentioned drawing your sidearm up to this point in the prior testimony, have you?
No.
Do you have any recollection now as you sit there that you drew a sidearm?
I can't remember if I did or I had my hand on it.
And this is a cop who doesn't know if he drew his weapon or was just touching it. This and that expression on F. Lee Bailey's face right there says bullshit. Nobody, including the jury, believes you didn't know whether you had your weapon drawn or if your hand was just resting on it. And Cochran is amazed, as Scott Cardinal says. But yeah, this is it. This is the problem. He knows what kind of a person Fuhrman is. He knows how he answers the question. So he builds these questions on the assumption that he's going to be evasive and uses that evasion against him. I mean, wow. Yeesh.
Testimony, have you?
No.
Do you have any recollection now as you sit there that you drew a sidearm?
I can't remember if I did or I had my hand on it, but no, I can't.
Just don't have a memory about that. True?
Oh, no. This comes up
That's
a lot.
Okay.
His memory issues come up a lot.
Did anybody direct you to go down and look at the Bronco?
No.
That was something you decided to do on your own?
Yes, sir.
Now, again, he was alone when he found the blood in the Bronco. And that's why he's been setting up. Were you standing there on the corner alone? Were you doing this alone? Did you arrive alone? Did you go alone? Getting him comfortable saying he was alone. Now he's laying the framework. Nobody told you to go down and look at this Bronco. You went down there all by yourself, and miracle of miracles, you found blood all alone, all by yourself in a place nobody told you to go.
And that's the car that you had seen as you drove by it, approaching Rockingham, traveling north, coming up from Sunset?
Yes.
Had you any reason as you passed by it to associate it with Mr. Simpson? Just
No.
based on looking at it?
No.
Had you noticed that there were vehicles parked inside the surround, that is, inside the fence enclosure?
Yes, I noticed vehicles inside.
And had you been able to identify them in the light that was available at the time?
I didn't know what the large luxury vehicle was, but I could tell by the lines of the one vehicle it was a sob.
Thank you, Megan. So
And you didn't know
appreciated.
whether the large vehicle was, did it look foreign made?
Yes, it was a
Did it look
foreign.
expensive?
Yes,
When you walked down to the Bronco, did you ask permission from Lieutenant Van Adder before you did that?
Detective Van Adder? No,
I'm sorry, Detective Van Adder. Detective Phillips?
no,
Detective Wang?
no.
This was on your own initiative,
Yes,
and you were detective. At this point, I take it.
I'm sorry.
You were detective.
I was detecting.
You had been
Just like that. He's got the back during the 75 minutes. So there was no detecting going on. Now he's like, okay, so now you're detecting, right? Now you're detecting. I love it. This is beautiful.
in your function by the notice of dismissal, but not for detective.
And this is the most, well, not the most, this is one of the beautiful, just demeaning, degrading questions.
At this point, I take it.
I'm sorry.
You were detective.
I was detecting.
You had been frozen in your function by the notice of dismissal, but now you are back again detective. True?
No, at that point I wasn't detecting. I was just walking.
You weren't just being nosy, were you?
I don't think nosy. I was walking and I noticed something on the Bronco and I continued walking towards it.
Well, was this a walk that you took to get some exercise and just happened to take you by the Bronco? Is that what happened?
It wasn't a walk for exercise. I just walked down to the corner and looked down Rockingham, saw the Bronco.
Was it a walk specifically to inspect the Bronco for some purpose, Detective Fuhrman?
No,
Was it?
no.
Is it simply that you were in its vicinity and decided to look around once you got there?
I was walking down towards the Rockingham gate. As I walked towards the Bronco, I noticed a few things.
While you were walking toward the Rockingham gate, were you going to try to get in that gate?
No,
Had you examined it to see if access was possible?
I don't think access was on my mind at that point.
Had anybody directed you to check out the Rockingham gate to see if
No.
you could get in?
No.
And as you walked by the Bronco on the street side, toward the center of the street, how light was it at that moment?
It was getting light, but it wasn't completely dawn yet.
Can you help us as to what time it may have been when you walked by the Bronco? Time of day?
5:20, 5:25.
And you think that the dawn was beginning to come, some natural light was on the scene at the time?
Maybe somewhat, yes.
Well, you weren't able to see into the Bronco without your flashlight, you told us.
That's correct.
Had you been wandering down the street with that little bitty flashlight on, just kind of pointing off to the side?
No,
With an itty bitty flashlight pointed out to the side.
Did something cause you to stop and turn your flashlight on to inspect the Bronco?
yes.
What was that?
A little speck above the door handle on the driver's side.
Is that something that caught your eye or something that you discovered by inspection?
I think it's something that caught my eye.
And at that point, you turn on your flashlight to take a closer look.
Yes, then I inspected.
And after you see that, you look further, correct?
Yes,
And you see some additional evidences that you think might be blood.
yes.
Would you describe once again what it was that you saw and where you saw it? Not the one above the driver's door handle, but elsewhere.
In the door sill of the driver's door, directly below the door, visible from the outside on the edge of the door sill, 3 or 4 little marks, little lines, translucent red.
And to whom, other than the detectives, did you direct attention as to these little marks?
Who did I show those marks to?
Yeah.
Dennis Fung, the criminalist.
Okay. Did you recommend to him?
Dennis Fung, the criminalist, who in just a few weeks, or even I guess a few days, Barry Scheck is going to dismantle completely himself, which that's the testimony we're going to get to. That'll be the next significant testimony is Barry Scheck's, whoa, my mic gain just went way up. That will be the next main question. The main testimony we look at is Barry Scheck cross-examining criminalist Dennis Fung about his evidence gathering techniques.
Him that they would be worth photographing?
I made no recommendations.
Did you ever see a photographer at Rockingham?
Yes,
Who was that?
I saw Mr. Rokar there.
When?
He came back up with me after I returned to the Bundy scene. So that would have been sometime after 7:30.
Did you ever speak to him about photographs?
No.
You know if there is anywhere today a photograph of what you say you saw on the lower part of the Bronco below the door?
I have not seen a photograph.
Yeah, he saw some stuff at 5 o'clock in the morning in the dark under a door that only he saw, and there's no photographs of it.
Now, was that Bronco locked, Detective Fuhrman?
I did not try to open the door.
Ever?
No.
Never touched the door handle that whole day, the 13th?
I did not.
Or any part of the car?
I laid the back of my palm on the hood of the car to see if the vehicle was warm. Yes, sir.
Taking its temperature?
Yes, sir.
Taking its
Other than
temperature.
that, no.
Well, you touched the vehicle when you cupped your flashlight in order to see in through the tinted window you've described?
No.
You didn't touch it?
No.
You simply came close?
I tried to cup the light so I could get a view inside.
And
Okay, that's kind of the background to get into the main part of the cross-examination I want to get into. Wow. Yeah, so you can see how F. Lee Bailey's leading him down this path. And the two primary things that he found were the blood here on the Bronco and in the Bronco. These couple micro drops. He was all by himself on the opposite side of the Bronco from where the other detectives were, walking all by himself at nobody's instruction. He just decided to, as he said, exercise, as F. Lee Bailey said, he just decided to take a walk down by the Bronco for no particular reason at nobody's instruction while he's not detecting yet. And then he notices in the middle of the darkness in the pre-dawn light, a speck, and that gets his attention. And again, the detectives are over here on this side of the Bronco up the path, and he's down here on the other side, on the street side of the Bronco, out of everyone's way, and he finds this magic evidence, some of which there's no photographic evidence of. And so you can see he's laying very good groundwork for the argument that Mark Fuhrman planted evidence. And he does it again with the glove by pointing out that when he first made his statement about what he saw in the bodies, he said by the feet, he saw them. The gloves he referred to as them, not a glove. It was them. He saw them. And then we'll get into this in the cross-examination bit that we're going to be listening to. We'll either get to it we're only going to go like about another hour here. We'll just do a quick 3-hour stream. We'll do a 3-hour, 2-hour stream. But coming up is the explanation of how he found this glove down we won't spoil it, but he found the glove behind the room where Kato Kalin was staying. He was alone again, wandered off all by himself, all alone. And when he previously referred to gloves as them at the Nicole Brown Simpson's house, suddenly it becomes a glove with the other glove at OJ Simpson's house, where he, all by himself, alone, without anyone around him, magically found it. Hey, Orange is the New Way. Long time no see. Good to see you here. Always a pleasure and always welcome. All right. Let's jump into the next section of this here real quick. And this will set us up pretty much perfectly for next week if we just get through a little bit of this. So while we're here, don't forget to hit that. We got to do our grift. We got to do our midstream grift. hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We're having fun. Come back. We're going to do this every Thursday for as long as it takes to get through this. At least for the next few months, every Thursday we're going to be doing OJ Simpson. There's a lot of fun stuff to cover, a lot of interesting stuff, and a lot of brilliant lawyering. Like I said, 2 of my 4 lawyer heroes are involved in this case, and that's what I love about this. And we'll compare their styles, we'll contrast their styles, but again, we're not doing this to change your mind about what you think, whether he is guilty or innocent. I want you to see what a master craftsman does with his skills. Masterful lawyering, masterful arguments, every step of the way, impeccable performance here by F. Lee Bailey, and see how that raises the reasonable doubt in the jury's mind. Mind you, this was a majority black a majority black jury. I can't even remember what the numbers were, but I remember it was a majority black jury. Here he is raising the specter of police planting evidence, which arguably the black community is well aware of. And racism, they raise the specter of racism majorly here, all to discredit the police detective. Does he do a good job? Is he a master at what he does? Be your judge, but this is why I'm sharing it with you. I don't care if you think he did it or not, or had anything to do with it. I don't care if you think he's guilty or innocent or just not guilty. He wasn't proven guilty. What I want you to see a master lawyer who is at the very top of his profession, make arguments and create reasonable doubt in a jury. With that, again, hit that subscribe button because we're going to keep doing this. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit the what do we call that? The like button, the notification button, join the members, whatever. Super chat away. I will answer your questions, whatever. We won't be doing any more super chatting, Griff. Just know it's there and it'll get your question or comment answered with priority, but we'll continue to look at the chat as we've been doing. We need to bring up OJ Simpson trial, March 14th, 1995, part 1. Oh, wait. We have to do, I almost forgot a little important piece of background here. Wait, stop. Okay. All right. What we're getting into here is the first couple of hours, so it'll be the rest of today and a little bit beginning next time, is the evidence gathering techniques. You know, how the evidence was gathered. But there's also arguments being made outside the presence of the jury regarding a letter from a woman named Kathleen Bell that she sent to OJ Simpson's lawyer. This is kind of the trigger. This was on July 19th of the previous year. So July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. 8 months before this testimony, Johnny Cochran gets a letter from this woman named Kathleen Bell. And this is what the letter said. Medina, did I miss the bad stuff? The bad stuff will happen next week. We're not going to get to the bad stuff this week. Wonder why Yoda's barking in the other room. Don't care. So this is the letter that Johnny Cochran received from a woman named Kathleen Bell. All right. I'm writing to you in regards to a story I saw on the news last night. I thought it is ridiculous that the Simpson defense team would even suggest that there might be racial motivation involved in the trial against Mr. Simpson. So she's pissed right from the beginning because they're playing the race card by suggesting that the detectives were racist. But I then glanced up at the television and was quite shocked to see that Officer Fuhrman was a man I had the misfortune of meeting. You may have received a message from your answering service last night that I called to say that Mr. Fuhrman may be more of a racist than you could even imagine. So again, this is TMZ guy. This is the Trailer Palace guy. They're saying, "Well, wait a minute. I know things." Master debater, yes, thank you very much for that, Flux. I deeply appreciate the super chat. So yeah, she's saying, "Well, wait a minute. I was pissed that they were suggesting there was racism involved, and then I looked up and thought, holy shit, I know this guy. I've had the misfortune of meeting him, and you might want to know what a racist he is. Between 1985 and 1986, I worked as a real estate agent in Redondo Beach for Century 21, Bob Maher Realty, now out of business. At the time, my office was located above a Marine recruiting center off of Pacific Coast Highway. On occasion, I would stop in to say hello to the two Marines working there. I saw Mr. Fuhrman there a couple of times. I remember him distinctly because of his height and build. I saw while speaking to the men, I learned that Mr. Fuhrman was a police officer in Westwood. And I didn't know if he was telling the truth, but he said that he had been in a special division of the Marines. I don't know how the subject was raised, but Officer Fuhrman said that when he sees a binger, as he called it, driving with a white woman, he will pull them over. I asked, what if he didn't have a reason? And he said he would find one. I looked at the two Marines to see if they knew he was joking, but it became obvious to me that he was very serious. Officer Fuhrman went on to say that he would like nothing more than to see all bingers gathered together and killed. He said something about burning them or bombing them. I was too shaken to remember the exact words he used. However, I do remember that what he said was probably the most horrible thing I ever heard someone say. Dirk, check yourself. What frightened me more was that he was a police officer. I'm almost certain that I called the LAPD to complain about Officer Mark Fuhrman. Yet I did not know his last name at the time. I would think the LAPD has some record of this. Now that I know Mr. Fuhrman was the investigating officer, I must suggest that you check into his background further. I am certainly not a fan of Mr. Simpson, but I would hate to see anyone harmed by Officer Fuhrman's extreme hatred. That letter, this is just a random woman who was angry that the defense was using the race card and saying that the detectives were racist. She looks up at the TV and sees that it was the same detective that about 10 years before had said really, really horrific things in her presence. So she just came and wrote the letter. So she's basically the TMZ guy from the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. She's the lady in the airport, the security officer in the airport. She's the trailer park guy who they saw interactions. They said, well, this doesn't match up. So she reached out, and now there's a huge fight. There's a huge fight over whether Fuhrman can be questioned about this letter. And later on, after we get through this little bit, down the road, Kathleen Bell is going to be called as a witness, and we'll look at that because that's important. But there was also statements that there was another black man inside the Marine recruiting center whose name was Cordoba, I believe it was. And Cordoba said that he was walking out and Fuhrman referred to him as an N-word as he was walking out. And then they get in a huge argument. And we'll show a bit of that argument next time. F. Lee Bailey and Marcia Clark get into probably the biggest argument of the entire trial, where because this Cordoba guy was on the prosecution's witness list, but F. Lee Bailey, his investigator, was talking to the guy, and he found out the other guy was a Marine, and F. Lee Bailey was a Marine. So he said, I want to say hi and thank him for his service, Marine to Marine. And he said that, but then that night, Dateline contacted this Cordoba guy, found him and contacted him and said, did F. Lee Bailey have this conversation with you? And he said, no. And so Dateline that night reported that F. Lee Bailey had lied and done all of this. And Marcia Clark went ballistic the next morning in court, calling F. Lee Bailey a liar, demanding that he be sanctioned. And then Bailey jumps up and starts defending himself. And it's basically, it takes the judge to pry them apart from each other's throats. And it turns out that Cordoba had not been completely truthful with NBC's Dateline, and Dateline had also taken some liberties, which was pretty darn interesting. But all of this letter sort of forms the basis of the next section we're going to be watching for this week and the remainder of next week. So yeah, and that's what they're trying. They're going to hold him to this. They're going to ask him about this, and he denies it, of course. And that's when things get interesting. But we're not going to get to that part until probably midway through next week's stream. But all of this we're watching today is leading up to that. It's laying the groundwork for him finding things on his own, for him possibly planting stuff, for him being coached. A huge part of this is him being coached by his lawyers. He was coached by his lawyers. He was, he has the meeting, and they knew, because the lawyers knew that they were going to ask Mark Fuhrman about this racist rants that he goes on. And so they obviously would try to prepare him for that. And he even denies that they did that. He admits he met with them, but he denies they were preparing him so that he wouldn't become enraged and get a temper up when questioned about racism. But let's jump into it here. So continue with your like, subscriptions, and whatnot while we jump back into this. Oh, wait, I think we have a super chat, I believe, that I did not clear. No, it wasn't a super chat. It was just a comment I highlighted. D Watt says, did OJ do it in your opinion? My opinion is no. Did he have something to do with it? Did he know about it? I believe yes, but I don't think he personally carried it out for a multitude of reasons. Primarily, 46-year-old man with arthritis and bad knees takes out a strapping young 20-something guy and a girlfriend so quietly the neighbors hear nothing. That's just my opinion, but I'm here to talk about the prosecution's ability to cause reasonable doubt in the minds of jurors. You all can draw your own conclusions. We're not here trying to convince you one way or the other. All right, let's get back to the jury.
For the delay in getting started, we had a number of issues that we had to take up at the beginning of the court day, and we're just getting around now to the presentation of evidence. I'm sure you understand the problems and difficulties that we often have. All right, president of the courtroom is
during the first 37 minutes, they argued a lot about the Kathleen Bell letter and how they were going to cross-examine on that. They got all the problems worked out.
All right, the record should reflect that Detective Fuhrman is present on cross-examination by Mr. Bailey. Good morning again, Detective.
Good morning, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Detective Fuhrman, you're reminded you are still under oath. Mr. Bailey, you may resume with your cross-examination.
Your Honor. Detective Fuhrman, I'd like to review with you the steps you have taken to prepare yourself.
This is the preparation arguments.
When was the first time following the preliminary hearing that you met with one of the prosecutors, those at the table and those not at the table that you know to be connected with this case, to discuss the case and or your testimony?
Are you saying post prelim, sir?
Post preliminary hearing.
Probably within the last month and a half.
Do I understand that there has been no contact between you and any of the prosecutors in this case up until 1995?
We haven't talked about this testimony. No.
About this case, Detective Fuhrman. You are very much a part of this case, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And you
And he wanted to be. He wanted to be part of this. He wanted to be the superstar. That's the implication here.
caused that by finding an important piece of evidence, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
You knew full well that once you came up with a piece of evidence of that sort, wasn't anybody could get you out of this case because you're an absolutely essential witness, right? Did you know that?
What's the objection? Withdrawn? All right, thank you. The objection was withdrawn.
Sir, the way you phrased that, get me out of this case, I wasn't trying to get out of this case.
No, but somebody was trying to get you out. You told us that in some detail yesterday. You were out, you thought.
Oh, you mean the responsibility of the case?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You thought you were off the case as a detective. When you stood for an hour at the intersection of Dorothy and Bundy, you thought you were through, didn't you?
I'm still a detective, sir, but as far as being the lead investigator, yes, that's correct.
You thought you were off the case. Isn't that what you told us yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. But when you turned out to find this glove over at
Oh, see, that's beautiful. See, this is what I was talking about, where he gets these statements from a day before. You know, okay, so you thought you were off the case. You were just waiting because you were off the case. And then he lays the pathwork for that question. You were off the case, implying that you wanted to be part of this. So you wanted to be part of this so much that if you found these pieces of evidence, if you found significant blood drops, if you found bloody gloves, you would become such an integral part of this case that you could never be taken off of it. That is a brilliant strategy. That is a brilliant line of questioning. Like I said, you lay these, you set the traps days before, and then you spring them days later with just an innocent question like that. Now, all of that, I was off the case. You know, I was waiting around for replacements. I was waiting to go. Now that all segues into the, I want to be part of this. So I'm going to just walk down there, maybe drop a couple blood drops on the Jeep, and then I'll be a hero. Oh, and then if I do more by planting a bloody glove, then there's no way I can be off this case. He's putting that seed in the jurors' minds.
through, didn't you?
I'm still a detective, sir, but as far as being the lead investigator, yes, that's correct.
You thought you were off the case. Isn't that what you told us yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. But when you turned out to find this glove over at Rockingham, you knew that you would be on the case as long as it lasted, didn't you?
No.
You didn't know that the glove could not be put in evidence in a criminal case without the person who found it saying under oath where he found it?
Overruled.
Sustained.
Oh,
Did you believe that you would be an essential witness if you were the first to find an important piece of evidence?
Well, I couldn't make that determination at that time, sir. I didn't even know what the implication of the glove was.
Well, you told us the minute you saw it, you thought it looked like the one on Bundy, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
All
I
right.
thought it looked
Now,
like.
you're a trained detective.
Excuse me, counsel. From yesterday, both of you, Detective Fuhrman, let him finish answering the question before you start the answer. Mr. Bailey, let him finish the answer.
Fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're driving the court reporter nuts.
Well, that we certainly don't want to do. Detective Fuhrman, had you finished the answer you were given?
I'm not sure. If you'd repeat the question, I'll give you another answer.
Did you tell us yesterday that when you spotted this glove, as you claim, that you recognized it as one that looked similar to the one on Bundy?
Yes.
And that you knew that the one on Bundy, I believe you said, was a left-handed glove, or believed it to be, did you not?
No.
Did not. You noticed that this appeared to be a right-handed glove.
Yes.
And the reason that you had three detectives in three separate trips trample back along that path was because you wanted to point out to them the fact that this glove looked like a match for the one they had seen over at the crime scene on Bundy. Isn't that true?
Not entirely. I just wanted to show them the evidence that I thought I found.
yeah. See, this is the thing. When he was alone when he found the glove. Then he came back and got one detective, brought him over there, and showed him the glove. Then he went and got another detective, brought him over and showed him the glove. And he did that with a third detective. He was alone when he found it, and he brought people one at a time to look at this glove that he is identified as looking very much like the one over at Nicole Brown Simpson's house and being the opposite hand.
Didn't you say to them they had seen over at the crime scene on Bundy? Isn't that true?
Not entirely. I just wanted to show them the evidence that I thought I found.
Didn't you say to them, in my view, this looks similar, or words to that effect?
I believe I said that to Detective Phillips, but I don't believe I went into that detail with the other two detectives, no.
Did you say anything when you took Mr. Van Adder back there? Anything at all?
I'm not sure exactly what I would have said. I believe Detective Phillips talked to Van Adder and Lang. They joined me, and I took them back the path.
I didn't ask you that, sir. What I asked you was whether or not, during the trip you have described, trip number 2, actually number 3, if you count your own, with Detective Philip Van Adder, the boss in this case, did you share with him your observations about the glove, or did you just remain silent?
I could have shared those observations.
See, Michael, you're doing this last week too. Can't believe you're buying this BS. Think the person was a paid witness. If he was so racist, why didn't he take OJ to jail in the DV call years earlier? So then who did it? MF. So Jeff, yeah, I guess Fuhrman is the real killer. You're ridiculous. I'm not saying anything. I'm talking about his ability as a lawyer to raise reasonable doubt in the minds of a majority black jury. He's doing a remarkable job. Such a good job, in fact, that it worked. Again, we're not talking about whether he did it or not. We're talking about a lawyer's ability to be a master of his craft, defend his client, and argue in such a way that a slam dunk case, a seeming slam dunk case, becomes what it became.
Yes, I don't recall specifically.
You recall Phillips, but you don't recall Detective Van Adder, is that right?
Initially, I just remembered talking to Phillips.
All right, now let's go to Detective Lang. You thought it was important enough to bring the third member of the 4-man team.
This is F. Lee Bailey
Didn't you?
asking questions.
Yes.
Okay. And did you tell Detective Lang your thoughts about the relevance of that glove to your investigation?
I don't believe I talked about relevance.
But without using the word relevance, just police talk. Did you say this looks important, Tom?
No.
No. What did you say?
I said it looks like it could be similar to the one on Bundy.
Okay. Now, you have told us a number of times that one of the things you noticed about the glove was that it was moist and sticky.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And did you point that out to Detective Phillips, that not only did it look like the glove from Bundy, but that it appeared to have a substance on it making it sticky, which could well have been blood?
I'm not sure if I did or I didn't.
But it had been through your mind, hadn't it?
Yes.
And the sticky part, I take it you observed when you took that little tiny flashlight of yours and shined it on the glove and saw something of a shiny nature, as opposed to a caked or dry surface.
Well, see, I mean, this is the thing, right-wing extremist. You don't think if you were given 6 months and entire weeks to cross-examine single witnesses, you could kick up some reasonable doubt? Well, again, here, the reasonable doubt comes from the answers given by the witnesses. And here, just in the 30 minutes or so we've watched of his initial testimony, he's been caught lying and repeatedly contradicting himself numerous times, sometimes from one sentence to the very next. And this is what happens when you have a bad witness. And especially when that bad witness is your star witness. You know, if everything is in proper shape, you can look over mistakes and that doesn't come to the level of reasonable doubt. But when you have someone like Mark Fuhrman on the stand, you have issues with credibility, with believability, with suspicion of doing things, and then just being caught red-handed lying about using words and lying about being a racist and saying racial things. Just flat out lying. Not even in any way, but we'll get to that next week when he denies using N-bombs, vociferously, indignantly deny F-bombs, N-bombs, vociferously and indignantly, absolutely refusing to admit and denying that he ever used those words. And F. Lee Bailey brings the receipts in the form of tapes. Right-wing extremists. Oh, yes, this is the N-word detective. And this is where the reasonable doubt began, if it hadn't already begun before. Yeah, this is the N-word detective. So yeah, you hang your hat on the N-word detective, and you're in a bad situation. But we'll get to the bad stuff next week. But let's get back to this. This is all laying the groundwork for the bad stuff. His preparation, what he was doing, how he found the witnesses, how important he thought he was, how he prepared for this testimony with his lawyer, and what financial motive does he have for doing it. Spoiler alert, he had filed a couple of defamation lawsuits for being called a racist. And if OJ Simpson goes down, he gets to bring his defamation cases to trial. Financial motivations for lying on the witness stand. Anyway, we'll get there eventually.
It appeared that it had somewhat of a gleam or a glisten to it.
Okay. Now, my question is, did you bring that to the attention of Detective Phillips?
I could have.
Did you bring it to the attention of Detective Lang?
I could have.
Did you bring it to the attention of Detective Van Adder?
I could have.
You don't have a memory of any of those conversations as we sit.
I don't have a memory of a specific comment that I made to any of those detectives when we were standing by the glove.
Were you more interested in showing each detective individually the glove, or more interested in trampling up the pathway?
Well, obviously I was interested in showing each detective separately and get a separate point of view of what.
Bad answer to that question. The key word in that question was trampling up the path. That's the bad thing. All right, we'll entertain one more question here from you, Michael. You just gave your own personal opinion. You don't think he did it. You said you can't see him being able to murder the people so efficiently and make no noise, etc. So who do you think did it? He's OJ Simpson. He's got money. I would say my guess would be he probably was involved and probably paid someone to do it. Hired someone, and him being... I would even go so far as to say that perhaps he even watched it being done. But I don't think he did it personally. I think perhaps it was someone he knew. There's suspicions, there's comments that perhaps it was his son. There's lots of things. But yeah, that's why I'm not saying he should have been found not guilty. I'm saying it makes sense that he was found not guilty, because of people like F. Lee Bailey cross-examining people like Mark Fuhrman, and people like Barry Scheck cross-examining people like the criminologist Dennis Fung, and putting that reasonable doubt in the jury's minds. So do I think he should have been found guilty? Not in trial, but in life, yes, I think he was guilty of being involved in it in some way, shape, or form. Do I think the jury verdict was correct? From a legal position, yes, because I believe there was sufficient reasonable doubt raised, whether it should have been or not, but it was raised, I think, to the level that there should have been an acquittal. I think the jury verdict was correct based on the arguments made. My own personal opinion, he didn't do it directly, but he knew about it, probably was there, and probably paid to have it done. That's just my opinion. And let's continue.
what they were viewing as I did.
Is it your practice when something is discovered to prohibit detectives except one at a time to view your discovery? Is that the way you usually operate?
As a crime scene, you'd want to bring in as few people as possible into an area.
As few people as possible. 18 sets of feet is a few people.
Now, if we did it all at the same time, it would have been even worse.
So again, getting back on track here, as I said, the key word that he asked him, was it more important for you to show them the evidence individually, or was it more important to go trampling up the path? The idea there that he's planting is by taking 3 separate trips up there instead of a group of people going up, he removed any trace of any evidence that there might have been that someone else had gone up that path. So again, when he's saying trampling up the path, he means destroying evidence that perhaps the real killer did it. The real killer walked up that path, and you just erased all of the evidence or was that what you were trying to do by making 3 separate trips?
Point of view of what they were viewing as I did.
Is it your practice when something is discovered to prohibit detectives except one at a time to view your discovery? Is that the way you usually operate?
As a crime scene, you'd want to bring in as few people as possible into an area.
As few people as possible. 18 sets of feet is a few people.
Now, if we did it all at the same time, it would have been even worse.
It would?
Yes.
Wouldn't you think the first 4 trips would be enough to blot out any footprints of a perpetrator, if any there were?
I didn't see any evidence of any footprints.
Well, you wouldn't see footprints in leaves, would you, detective? You know that takes an expert, don't you?
I don't believe you.
Sustained.
Do you have some training about what criminalists do?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell us yesterday you had taken a course wherein footprints of various kinds were discussed?
There was not a specific course, but yes, it was mentioned.
I said you took a course wherein footprints were discussed. Is that true?
And
Not
that
just footprints,
and
sir.
this
That was
right
part of
here
it.
is why I
Say
think
just-
he may have been there watching it.
Let him finish.
Oh, okay.
It was part of a course or a school.
I understand that. It was a course wherein footprints were discussed, was it not?
Yes.
All right. Did you learn about latent footprints in that course?
It could have been mentioned.
And what is a latent footprint? Would you explain to the court and jury your understanding?
It's a print that is not visible to the naked eye.
How can it be viewed by an expert, if you were taught, so that it becomes perceivable?
I'm sure there's some type of a chemical process, oblique lighting, quite possibly maybe some type of infrared or, as I said, chemical process, but I'm not an expert in that area.
Now, when you first saw what you claimed was a brown object laying on the ground as you approached it, and you noticed that it was a glove, perhaps a match, with the one you had seen at Bundy, did you stop and think about what you should next do?
Yes.
Did you then examine, by the way, the shrubbery over the chain link fence where someone could conceivably have climbed over?
I didn't focus my attention to the shrubbery at that time, no.
Did you inspect it to see whether it was damaged in any way consistent with intrusion?
That whole area was overgrown and dirty. That would be extremely difficult to make that conclusion.
Did you look for broken twigs or leaves that were damaged in the shrubbery above the chain link fence at the situs where the glove was seen?
I did not look, but I did not see any of that.
So you
I did not look, but I did not see. Not the best way of answering that question, Mark. And again, you say you found this glove back there. Did you check the bushes to see if it looked like someone had climbed through the bushes? Well, I didn't look, but I didn't see either.
You didn't have at that point any interest in whether or not someone had dropped the glove coming over the fence.
My interest at that point was who left the glove and what condition they were in.
All right, let's analyze that.
See, he just opened up that door to what the investigation was about, why he was back there, what he was interested in. He's saying he wasn't interested in how that glove got there, or he was interested in finding out whose glove it was. And then it goes, this is where it starts to go downhill slowly, and then picks up steam next week.
You said what condition they were in. What do you mean by that?
Well, there appeared to be something on the glove that could be blood.
That's right. Which could well have gotten there if a killer had worn it while slaughtering Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman, correct?
Possibly.
What did you think of that, Detective Fuhrman?
I thought of a lot of things at that time.
Did you think of that?
That along with others.
All right. Well, let's take them one at a time. You considered that this glove could have been used in those slayings. And that was its significance, correct?
It could have, yes.
No. Did you decide to inquire further as a detective to try to resolve the issue as to what it was and how it got there?
At that point, I was just looking for a person that left it.
Okay. Now let's talk about the person that left it.
Yes, who left it?
Sure that as you stood there looking at an instrumentality of a brutal murder whose scene you had just visited a short time before, you began to think about the nature of the person that might have had control and custody of that glove, correct?
No.
You did.
See, his trying to avoid these answers. I wanted to find out who left the glove. So Bailey asks him in a lengthy way. So your focus became on whose glove this was and how, and his answer is no. He just said, I wanted to find out whose glove it is. And then Bailey gets him to say, no. That's not what he was after.
Whose scene you had just visited a short time before, you began to think about the nature of the person that might have had control and custody of that glove, correct?
No.
You didn't.
No.
Well, did you think a victim, some victim you hadn't discovered, might have taken a glove from the scene of the crime and deposited it on OJ Simpson's property?
Sir, I had no knowledge of anything at that point.
Did you think that?
No.
Okay. Did you think that possibly someone who had been involved as a killer might have deposited that glove wittingly or unwittingly on Mr. Simpson's property?
I did not think of any of these things at that time.
You didn't think of any of these things?
No.
So what did you
Did you
think?
think that possibly whoever put that glove there, if it was put there, was somebody dangerous?
Possibly.
See, this is his hedging is really, really bad for the prosecution. I mean, clearly, why would you not say, when a lawyer asks you, you found a bloody glove that matched a bloody glove from a brutal murder down the street. You found this glove. And were you concerned that the person who dropped this may have been a dangerous person and committed murders? Well, maybe, possibly. You know, that's what he was thinking. Say, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking the murderer dropped this intentionally or unintentionally at this site. That's what we're all thinking. But he can't say that, and it is frustrating.
What training do you have about what to do when you sense danger? What's your first obligation?
Okay, and again, just watch how he describes what he does when he's concerned about the danger that the owner of that glove may be a killer. What does he do?
I don't think I understand that.
You don't?
No.
The safety of the officer, I believe you said yesterday, is a paramount consideration in police work.
If you phrase it like that, my own safety, correct?
No. Now, what thoughts were you having about your safety when you were looking at what you thought might have been dropped by a killer?
At that time, I was thinking that who's watching me at this time?
Aha. Did you have any concern at all?
So he was thinking the killer may be watching him.
You might be attacked.
At that time, I was thinking that who's watching me at this time?
Aha. Did you have any concern at all that you might be attacked?
Possibly.
You're a police officer standing there with his weapon sticking out for all to see, weren't you?
Yes.
On your hip.
Yes.
That would represent, in your view, some kind of threat to somebody with blood on his hands, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You had no reason to think that whoever was responsible for that glove was wounded, did you?
Yes, I did.
Did you see any blood leading to or from the glove in any direction, Detective Fuhrman?
No.
Well, if they were wounded, did you think they'd been to a doctor and got fixed up?
I couldn't speculate on that, sir.
Well, why did you think they were wounded? You tell me.
Someone leaving the scene at Bundy was bleeding from the left side of their body.
You're sure of that?
I'm not sure, but at that time, that was a conclusion that we had made.
A conclusion you had made. Did you ever study anything about blood, Detective Fuhrman? Blood and blood spatter, was that part of your course before you became a detective?
Briefly, yes.
Okay. And did you learn something about reading blood spots to determine their origin?
Their origins, sir?
Yes.
In other words, how they
got there.
how they got there. In a general sense, yes.
All right. And the first thing you learned is that a spot which is round has been dropped from some object or person that is not in motion. Did you not?
That would be correct.
And when a spot is dropped by someone who is bleeding and moving, it leaves a different shape on a hard surface, such as the concrete of that walkway, correct?
Yes.
And the spots that you saw, and the ones that were photographed for this case, were round, weren't they?
They appeared to be round, yes.
Yes. And so if this was associated with a killer, what you were reconstructing and detecting in your own mind was someone leaving the scene of a very bloody double assassination and periodically stopping and dripping as he went. Is that what you thought?
No.
Well, you knew that they weren't dropped by anyone who was running just from the shape, didn't you?
I'm not an expert in that field, so I didn't know exactly what transpired on that walkway.
Just had enough training, you told us.
I didn't say I had enough.
Recognize, sorry.
See, he's again, and he goes and contradicts himself. This is sort of what Alec Baldwin is doing in his testimony, in his shooting, where he's saying, "I'm not I'm just a dumb actor. I don't know anything about gun safety." And then the next minute, he proceeds to talk about how much of a gun expert he is because he's been using them on set for 40 years. He just got him to say, if a blood drop is round, it is coming vertically, and it means the person's not in motion. Otherwise, it would have a motion pattern to it. And then he says, so by seeing these blood drops, it indicates the guy was walking, stopping, dripping, walking, stopping, dripping. And then he says something, I don't know anything about blood or what the blood spatters mean.
I hadn't finished the question.
An expert in that field, so I didn't know exactly what transpired on that walkway.
Just had enough training, you told us.
I didn't say I had enough.
Recognize, sorry. I hadn't finished the question.
Right.
May I finish the question?
Absolutely, sir.
I believe you said you had enough training to recognize that a round spot was not made by something in motion. Didn't you say that?
No.
Yes,
Oh,
you
you did.
did.
No. I
What
said
did
a
you
round
mean by that?
spot was consistent with someone that is not in motion, but I never viewed those drops to any more than extent that to say that they were round. I never went back and inspected them.
I understand you're a detective in this case, and the first one on the scene to do any real detecting, weren't you?
Yes.
And these were pointed out to you by a patrolman named Rick, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, did he take his rather powerful flashlight and stop at each drop?
And here we have the very powerful flashlight contrasted with the repeated comment about Mark Fuhrman's tiny little flashlight.
And illuminate it so that you could view it.
We did not pause at every drop, no.
What did you do? Just run by and catch them on the fly?
No,
How did you view them?
He's explaining the scene. He's walking us through the scene.
Oh.
We did not stop and inspect every piece of evidence for a long period of time at that time.
Well, let's back up then. Do you now wish to say that you don't know, as of that evening, didn't know whether they were round or otherwise?
I'm not saying that, sir. I'm saying they appeared round, but I'm not an expert to determine how or at what height or at what speed the person's moving. I can't testify to that.
I thought you said you learned in school that round is inconsistent with motion, period. Is that what you meant to say?
No, it isn't what I meant to say.
Okay. Do you know, or were you ever shown what a blood drop looks like if it has been dropped on a hard surface by someone moving?
Yes.
And do you know that the faster the person is moving, the more elongated the shape of the drop as it comes to rest?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Now, did you have any way to know how long those drops had been on that walkway? That is, any aging on that walkway?
No.
Okay. Now, coming back, if we may, to Monday. Was it not really your idea to scale the wall and go into Mr. Simpson's house, premise?
Detective Van Etter made a statement that we should go in, and how are we going to do it? And I said, well, I'll go over the wall.
Detective Fuhrman, in fact, isn't it true that you went to Detective Van Etter and urged upon him that this was an emergency situation, that action had to be taken immediately, there might be victims bleeding to death inside the premises, and you felt something had to be done right now? Isn't that what happened?
No, that was a conversation between Van Etter and myself, and both of us experienced the same concerns.
Did you say to him, in my view, this is an emergency and we need to act now?
Yes.
Did you not say that to him before he made any such statement to you?
He was making similar statements to me at the same time in this conversation.
And did you volunteer to be the one that hurdled the wall?
Yes.
Did you realize when you hurdled that wall that there might someday be a legal challenge to the propriety of your actions?
No.
Did you realize when you hurdled the wall that you were inexorably a part of this case for as long as it might last?
I don't think I was thinking any of those things, sir.
Didn't occur to you?
No.
Okay. Had you run any numbers of cars out on the street other than the Bronco, or had they been run by someone to your knowledge?
I might have run the vehicle that was just east of the Ashford Gate. It might have been a foreign car. Might have been a 280 or Celica. I'm not sure which it was.
Okay. Japanese car of some kind?
I think so.
What do you remember about it?
I think it was dark colored and quite cluttered in the interior. And I somewhat remember, I think it was registered somewhere in West Hollywood or Hollywood.
Okay. And when you ran it through the computer, did it disgorge a name as the registered owner?
I don't recall that.
Do you remember hearing the name Brian Kaelin before you ever went over the wall?
No, I don't recall that, no.
When you went over the wall and let the other officers in, you proceeded ultimately to Kato Kalin's room, correct?
Yes.
Did you hear any of the other detectives inquire of Mr. Kalin if he had seen Mr. Simpson that evening?
I'm not sure if it was a conversation to that effect, more like, do you know if Mr. Simpson's in the house or the main house?
But you did not hear any question about the whereabouts of Mr. Simpson, as Mr. Kaelin might be able to attest to it during the relevant period?
No.
All right. When the others went to Arnell's room, at Cato's suggestion, I take it, you stayed.
See, and this thing I have trouble with just from a police procedural issue. They essentially break in to go over the wall, let people in. They emerge and they enter the OJ Simpson premises on an emergency basis. But yet nobody asks where OJ Simpson is. If he's all right, if he's dead, what's going on? Nobody asks that question. That's kind of weird. I mean, it's not indicative of anything. It doesn't prove anything. I think it's just weird. You wouldn't ask the first person you see where the owner of the house is.
Behind.
Yes.
Had anybody directed you to stay and question Kaelin?
No.
This is something you decided to do on your own, is it not?
Yes.
Did you go to the lead detective or any of them, since they were all your superior, and ask permission to interrogate Kato Kalin?
No.
Did you ask permission of any of them to test him for sobriety or drug use?
No.
Did you ask permission of any of them to search his premises?
No, sir.
Now, when you began to talk to Kaelin, you said you didn't know who he was.
No.
Do you represent that you didn't understand that it was his car parked outside the Ashford gate?
No, I did not know that.
Did you ever question him about whether or not he had an automobile nearby?
I did not know.
Did you view him as a suspect?
He didn't appear to be so much a suspect, but then again, I didn't really know what his function was at the house.
Did you ask him what clothes he'd worn that night?
Yes,
Did he show you?
yes,
Did you inspect them looking for signs that might in some way tie him to the homicides?
I looked at his clothes and his shoes. Yes,
Okay. You turned his shoes over to look at the soles to see if there was any blood on or in between the ridges of the soles, correct?
yes,
What was the purpose in doing that, Detective Fuhrman?
to see if there's any blood on the soles.
Now, in interrogating Kaelin, were you watching him carefully to see if he did anything unusual or made any little slips in his talks with you that might capture your interest?
Well, Mr. Kaelin's Mr. Kaelin, and I didn't know that then, but he's rather different when he talks.
I'm sure that's interesting. Would you try to answer now the question I put to you?
I was trying to, the specific question, sir, once again.
The specific question was, while you questioned Mr. Kaelin or spoke to him, were you observing him for the purpose of picking up any of the little signals that interrogators look for? Nervousness, contradiction, slips of the tongue, that sort of thing.
Not consciously, no.
By the way, had you felt the hood of the Kaelin automobile, what turns out to be the Kaelin automobile, as you did the Bronco?
I don't believe so.
You weren't concerned about the recent history of that vehicle, I take it.
Well, I didn't find anything on that vehicle or anything around that vehicle that was really very suspicious.
And you weren't concerned whether it had been recently driven, even though it was parked very close to Mr. Simpson's premises. That's all?
No.
Okay. All right. Now, in questioning Mr. Kaelin, there was, in your mind, a very urgent matter to which you needed an answer, was there not?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Something
question was
you
that?
really wanted to know when you went into his room. Isn't that true?
No.
Well, one of the most important questions a detective can ask a witness or potential witness is, did you notice something unusual? Correct?
I don't think that's the most important. It's pretty
I see.
general statement, sir.
I said one of the most important questions a detective can ask of a potential witness is having noticed anything extraordinary or unusual. Isn't that so?
Extraordinary, I would agree with.
Okay. Now, and you put that question to Mr. Kaelin, didn't you?
Yes.
But there was another issue so important that you had to cut him off and put another question before he could respond. True?
I don't believe that's the situation.
Well, do you normally ask somebody a question and then before they have a fair chance to answer you, cut them off with another one?
Mr. Kaelin wasn't exactly quickly responding to certain questions. And that's to the best of my recollection while I probably came up with another question.
I now understand that the reason that Kato got question 2 before he answered question 1 was that he was slow on the draw. Is that right?
Yes.
When did you first tell somebody that, Detective Fuhrman?
I was never asked that.
You never were?
No, sir.
Well, you volunteered that you cut Kato off in prior testimony, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
You didn't say anything about him being slow to respond then, did you?
No.
Is that something you recently remembered?
No.
Is it something you simply left out?
No, it's something I wasn't asked.
Was there any other reason to interject question 2 about the Bronco?
It was a question that we wanted answered. I think it was important to know if Mr. Simpson was home.
Well, it was important to you, wasn't it?
It's important to all of us.
Had you been directed by anybody to make that inquiry of Kato Kalin?
Mm-hmm.
No.
So I take it now, at this point, having been to the Bronco and hurdled the wall, and you're interrogating Kaelin, you viewed yourself as a detective very much in the case,
Oh, I'm always a detective. Yes.
in the Simpson case. Is that your perception of yourself?
Yes, I was asked to assist those detectives, yes.
Now, Mr. Kaelin told you that that car normally was driven by Mr. Simpson, correct?
Yes, I believe he said it was OJ's vehicle.
And you asked whether he had driven it that night.
I believe I did, yes.
And Mr. Kaelin responded he thought so, but he wasn't sure. Correct?
I believe so, yes.
Then you got back to the question of about unusual occurrences. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And the word you used in speaking with Kato was unusual, wasn't it?
Yes.
And now that he finally did get a chance to answer, what did he say?
He said at about 10:45, he heard a crashing on his wall and he thought there was going to be an earthquake. His picture shook. And then he continued to say that he went out to investigate it and he saw a limo at the gate.
Well, he never suggested to you that he went back along the wall, between the wall and the fence, to the area of the noise, did he?
No, sir.
Did he tell you he started to do that before Mr. Simpson left for the airport, but because the dog wouldn't go with him, he was afraid and canceled the investigation? Did he mention that to you?
No.
Didn't know that at the time?
Didn't know at any time.
Okay. You didn't know that was his testimony in the preliminary hearing?
No, sir.
Did you discuss with Kato whether or not he'd ever heard sounds like that before?
No.
Did you discuss with him possible causes of such a sound?
No.
Did you ask him to relate it to any other experience so that you might better understand what could or could not have caused that disturbance?
No, sir.
And see, this is more of laying this doubt. He's not doing a thorough job. He's not asking basic questions. They're not necessarily basic questions, but the way F. Lee Bailey is presenting them, they're making it sound like these are natural questions that any competent officer would ask. And so the way he's phrasing it, the way he's asking it is a masterful way. And again, our resident contrarian Michael Palmer is saying, to me, there's no reasonable doubt. Okay, that's great. Nobody's trying to change anybody's mind here at all. We're looking at it from the lawyering perspective. So they did have a witness who saw him leaving Nicole's in the Bronco, but she sold her story to a magazine, so the prosecutors didn't want to use her testimony. So the jury doesn't know about that. So we have to take this out of the reasonable doubt equation. This has to be taken out because the jury did not know about this. They did not hear about this witness because they never made their appearance. So you can't say that there's no reasonable doubt in the jury's mind because of this witness that they didn't hear from. That's got to be removed. And you'd also mention, well, where are all the people he unjustly arrested, calling him racist? Again, that's what we're going to get into next week is the Cordoba incident where he called someone at the Marine recruiting station a black gentleman, the N-word. And his history, he has a spotty history, which goes back to 1981. We'll just quickly read. No reason to bring up this stream here. In 1981, Fuhrman requested leave for workers' compensation. During a psychiatric interview regarding this claim, Fuhrman expressed racist sentiments, stating that he stopped enjoying military service because of alleged insubordination from Mexican Americans and African Americans, whom he described as bingers. Fuhrman received workers' compensation and remained on leave until 1983. During this time, Fuhrman attempted to leave the police force permanently and receive a stress disability pension. In a 1982 psychiatric interview, he claimed that he had tortured suspects and conned internal affairs detectives, that he would choke suspects and break their arms and legs if necessary, and that he had pounded suspects' faces to mush. Fuhrman claimed that he was afraid he would kill someone if he were returned to street patrol. Several psychiatrists recommended he be removed from duty completely. Others recommend that he not be allowed to carry a gun, but the city of Los Angeles argued that his statements were merely part of an elaborate ruse to win a pension. Fuhrman lost his case, and a subsequent appeal to the Superior Court was rejected. Therefore, he returned to duty as a police officer. A little bit of background, not the best background. But yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, and this is probably the last comment we'll read, Michael. You enjoy being the contrarian, but yeah, poor OJ was framed by the terrible racist. Poor guy didn't do this. It's not what we're saying. We're not saying whether the statements are right or wrong. We're saying that is the doubt that the jury that is having put in their mind by F. Lee Bailey and other witnesses as this goes on. We're just looking at the lawyering aspect of it because that's what we do. If I was a cop, I'd probably be watching it from a cop's perspective. But anywho, let's continue. We've got probably about 15 more minutes here, and then we'll call it quits and we'll do the rest next week. That's where we get into the bad stuff.
Did you then and there, Detective Fuhrman, decide on your own to go out and investigate the source of that sound?
I decided to go out and try to orient myself with the property and see where that sound could have come from. Yes.
And did you decide that you would go to the probable source as described by Mr. Kaelin by relating it to an air conditioner which plainly stuck through the wall?
I think when I went to the south border and I saw the path, I walked down the path as a continuation of discovering where that sound or that wall was located.
Ex-Comer has gifted 1 Legal Vice membership, and it was picked up by Undomesticated Terrorist. Thank you so much, Ex-Comer.
But we're still back in Cato's room. I'm asking whether or not, before you ever left that room, you made a decision that you would go investigate the source of the sound.
I believe when I walked him into the house and I walked through the house, when I told Phil, why don't you talk to this guy at the bar? I think I had decided to go out and try to figure out where that sound came from on the opposite side of the wall. Yes.
And I'd understand that this is a decision made while walking.
Yes.
Okay. When you left the room, you hadn't made the decision.
I don't know exactly when it happened, but I would, to the best of my recollection, be when I was walking into the house. Yes.
By the time you got to the house, you had made the decision. Correct?
I didn't really, I can't really recollect exactly at what step I did, but I was walking him in, asking him to sit down. And as I walked out to try to figure out where that sound would have come from on the other side of the wall. So during that period between Kaelin's room and the front door of the residence, or telling Van Adder if he would talk to the man at the bar. Between that period, I did.
Detective Fuhrman, is it not true that as you decided to walk out to the source of the noise, you decided to go alone?
Now, this is some important testimony here, too. Again, Ex-Comer has now gifted 10 more memberships. I assume that's what he meant to do the first time. Who gets the 10 memberships? Nico Spotty gets one. Oh, my gosh, there they all go. Nico Spotty, Karen, Justin Morgan, Frig Snowden, HM, Amanda, Joe Sullivan, VM Doss, Don Aitken, and Talking Trash and Truths. Congratulations to you, 10 people that benefited from the lovely gifts thrown down by Ex-Comer. And thank you, Ex-Comer, for doing that. Much, much appreciated. Now, there's a couple of very interesting things that he is going to say here, which involved him finding the glove alone. Remember, he found the blood on the Bronco door by walking down there alone, where no one told him to go, no one told him to be, no one told him to do anything, and it was on the side that was away from the police officers. And now he's finding the glove all by himself, alone, doing something that he wasn't told to do, didn't ask permission to do. He just did on his own. And listen to him describe how he found the glove.
I was already alone, sir.
No, you were to walk out to the source of the noise. You decided to go alone.
I was already alone, sir.
No, you were with Kaelin, who could have taken you out there, I suppose. Could he not?
I'm sure he could have.
You were with Detective Van Adder, the lead, with whom you never discussed your plans, correct?
No, I wasn't with him. I yelled to him. He was in the kitchen.
You were in the same building with him, were you not?
Yes.
You were the gentleman that had to stand at Dorothy and Bundy for an hour for a lack of instruction. Are you not?
Yes.
And you decided without confiding in anyone to go alone behind that building, correct?
Correct.
Did it occur to you that Mr.
And see, that's a brilliant trap he just got himself caught in. For 75 minutes, he can't do anything because he hasn't been instructed to do anything. Now, without instruction, he wanders around and finds some blood. And again, without instruction, he walks around and finds a glove. It doesn't look good.
Kaelin might be able to assist you in pointing out the exact source of the noise as he reconstructed it? Do you think of that?
No.
Never thought of that.
No.
Did it occur to you that there might be danger lurking out there in the darkness in the vicinity of the south wall?
At that time?
Yeah.
No.
That thought never crossed your mind?
It wasn't present. It wasn't foremost in my mind, no.
Had it up to that point crossed your mind that there might be what you call a suspect in the vicinity, Detective Fuhrman?
There was a possibility, but it seemed very remote.
See, he just testified before that he was worried when he found the glove that he thought someone might be watching him. The killer might be watching him. So he was concerned for his safety. And now he's saying that he thought it was a remote possibility that there was any danger to him behind there. He just keeps dramatically contradicting himself on important parts of the testimony. Bad witness. And it gets worse.
How did you discard that possibility at the time you decided to make this solo investigation?
I didn't discard it. It just wasn't foremost in my mind.
You're telling me as a police officer that having once been apprehensive about possible physical harm to yourself, you were able to turn that aside. Is that correct?
Now, I don't understand about the physical harm, sir.
What caused your concern to dissipate, if anything, Detective Fuhrman, about your safety?
I still don't understand, sir.
You don't understand that question?
No. At what point?
Do you understand that at some point prior to climbing the wall, you expressed the notion that there might be suspects around? Do you know that?
Yes.
All right. Suspects in the premises means, in this case, someone who might be connected with a double murder, doesn't it?
Yes.
That person should always be considered by any intelligent officer to be potentially armed and dangerous. Is that not so?
Yes.
Did you give consideration to the possible existence out there in the Simpson shadows of someone who was armed and dangerous?
At that point, it was somewhat remote since we had already entered the house.
Now, having entered the house, shielded you from any danger by the south wall, is that what you're telling us?
No, of course not.
You understood something unusual had taken place out there, correct?
No, that was Cato's description, something unusual. That was what he described.
Well, you thought it was important enough to go right out there, didn't you?
I thought it should be investigated.
All right. Do you normally order Phil Van Adder around?
No.
Did you in this case?
No.
Did you instruct Kato Kalin to sit on a bar stool?
Yes.
Why did you instruct him to do that in a house where you were the guest and he was a resident?
I wanted him to sit there.
Sustained.
Had you learned by that time that he lived in that bungalow?
Yes, I concluded that.
All right. Why would you instruct him to sit on a bar stool?
So I wanted him to sit there.
Why did you want him to sit there, Detective Fuhrman?
So Detective Van Adder or another detective could talk to him.
That would take care of two of them, wouldn't it?
To a who?
If you instruct Van Adder to go and talk to Kaelin, that ties up two of the four people that were with you in the house, or the five, doesn't it? Having a conversation.
See, that look on his face says, oops. Because remember, the whole premise of this is that he planted the glove. That's the idea that F. Lee Bailey is trying to put in the heads of the jurors, that Mark Fuhrman, acting alone without instruction, ran back behind that house and planted the glove. But to do that, he has to get rid of the 4 people there, the 3 other detectives and Kato Kalin. Now he's just got him to admit that he asked his boss to talk to Kato Kalin, so that 2 of them are tied up, and now he only has to worry about the other 2. And that look on his face right there was the, oh shit, I see where he's going with this line of questioning, and I don't know what to do about it. Ono Y says there are not enough objections, because F. Lee Bailey has been doing this for 40 years up to this point and knows how to ask a question that isn't going to elicit an objection. Only a few objections come out. There's a lot of stuff that happens outside the presence of the jury. But yeah, here he has Mark Fuhrman realizing, oh shit, I'm being trapped and I don't know what to do about it. So watch his expression drop as soon as Bailey says, so you've tied up 2 of the 4 people that you need to get out of the way to plant the evidence. Where do we go? Here we go.
Detective could talk to him.
That would take care of 2 of them, wouldn't it?
2 of who?
Watch this
If you
expression.
instruct Van Adder to go and talk to Kaelin, that ties up 2 of the 4 people that were with you in the house, or the 5, doesn't it? Having a conversation.
That right there is the oh shit look.
You understand my question?
No.
All right. Would you agree with me, Detective Fuhrman, that everybody's got to be someplace,
I agree.
and that one person can't be in 2 places?
Agreed.
So that if you cause 2 people to join together in a conversation at a specific place, it is unlikely that they will be at any other place until the conversation is over.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Now, I'll ask you one more time. Did you use words of instruction to Phil Van Adder, telling him, without suggesting any subject matter, go talk to Kaelin?
Not in that manner, but yes, I did.
You
Did
had
you instruct
already
him? No,
formulated
but
a
I did.
plan that you were going to look out behind the building in the darkness for something, correct?
No,
You had not?
I didn't even know if that was accessible from the front of the residence.
Didn't you tell us that as you walked from the bungalow to the house, you had made a decision that you would go look at the source of the noise?
I wasn't even,
I'm sorry, did you say that?
yes,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then at the time you said, Phil, go talk to Mr. Kaelin, you were on your way, weren't you?
yes,
You didn't hesitate at all. Once that utterance was out of your mouth, you kept right on moving.
yes,
You saw Phillips on the telephone.
yes, I believe so.
And did you see Detective Lang?
I don't recall if I saw.
Was he in the proximity of Ronald Simpson, apparently engaged in conversation of some sort?
He could have been.
All right. That's 5 people in the house, correct? After
Yes.
you leave, all engaged in doing something, right?
Yes,
Now, take us back, if you will, to your initial training about the buddy system, both military and police. Did you not say that it is axiomatic that you don't go in alone if danger could possibly be present?
well, considering certain situations, that would be desirable, yes.
Let's look at this situation.
Mhm.
You were investigating what you have called, in your own testimony, an extremely significant homicide, weren't you?
Yes,
Probably the most serious that you had encountered among the 11 on which you had worked. Is that a fair statement?
yes, sir.
Okay. And you had seen evidence that somebody, either psychotic or psychopathic, had brutalized 2 human bodies with something, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you knew that that someone could be unpredictable and deadly if you were to encounter them, correct?
I don't think we knew anything about the killer at that.
Jesus, see, he's just said, yes, this guy carved up 2 people in the worst murder I've ever been involved in. And Bailey says, so that would be dangerous, right? And he can't even say, yeah, this guy that just carved up 2 people would be considered dangerous. This is what gets him in trouble. Well, that and the shit that we're going to do next week. But I mean, at this point, this is what's getting him in trouble. He can't say a simple yes because he thinks he's better than F. Lee Bailey, because he's arrogant. This was the ultimate slam dunk yes question, and it would have shut off a lot of other questions.
Had brutalized 2 human bodies with something, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you knew that that someone could be unpredictable and deadly if you were to encounter them, correct?
I don't think we knew anything about the killer at that time,
That is
but I'd
just
say that they would
stupid
be
answer.
dangerous considering the scene.
Wouldn't you draw an inference that somebody capable of that kind of murder might not hesitate to take you down?
Yes.
Okay. So as you leave the building, you left 3 guns behind, didn't you?
3 detectives, yes.
3 detectives, each of whom was carrying the same sidearm that you're wearing today, correct?
Yes.
That's a Glock automatic pistol, is it?
No.
What is it?
I believe all 3 of those detectives, one was carrying a 2-inch 38 model 36. One was carrying a Smith & Wesson stainless steel. And Detective Van Adder, I don't recall what he was carrying. I was carrying a Beretta.
Automatic weapon,
Yes.
each capable of firing several shots in quick succession.
Yes.
Now, had you thought about asking one of those fellows to go with you? Maybe someone who had a grown-up flashlight?
This is just so pointless in the whole thing. And that was my favorite one right there. He's talked about little flashlights, small flashlights, tiny little flashlights, other people's powerful flashlights. And that was my favorite thing there. It was just so demeaning and so smooth the way he got it through there. And this is just a tactic to make the jury think lesser of this witness. It's a pretty aggressive tactic to take. But by constantly calling his flashlight little, small, weak, he's putting those words into the jury's head when they think of Fuhrman and they weigh the veracity and the weight of his testimony. They're thinking small, tiny, weak. So it's a beautiful subconscious strategy. It's a bit dodgy, but hey, that's what you're getting paid the huge bucks to do. And he does it so well that he hasn't been called on it yet. But that was beautiful. That was my favorite one right there. Wouldn't you want to get someone with a grown-up flashlight? All that says to the jury is he's a child that needs daddy. Beautiful, beautiful strategy.
And I was carrying a Beretta.
Automatic weapon,
Yes.
each capable of firing several shots in quick succession.
Yes.
Now, had you thought about asking one of those fellows to go with you? Maybe someone who had a grown-up flashlight?
Even he has to laugh.
No.
You never considered that for a moment?
No.
All right. Now, I ask you once again, was it not your purpose to be in the area along the south wall alone?
No, it wasn't.
It just worked out that way. Is that it?
I didn't even know the south wall was accessible.
No. It just worked out that you left the house and made your investigation for 15 minutes or more alone.
That's how it worked out.
That's how it worked out. You now walk back to the pathway toward what you think will be the wall with the air conditioner. Am I correct?
Yes.
At that point, you're solely expecting to inquire into possible sources of something that thumped the wall and made a picture shape.
There was a possibility, yes.
Right. Did you proceed slowly and with some caution into this area?
Yes.
How far ahead of you would this little teeny flashlight illuminate the way?
5-6 feet.
Okay. But it was bright enough to alert anyone in that darkness that somebody was coming carrying a light, wasn't it?
Yes, it would.
You could see it from quite a distance if it were pointed at you.
Yes.
So you proceed along the walkway, pausing to look at the structure, what you call indentations.
Yes.
And you come upon the glove.
Eventually, yes.
Now, you have told us that you had learned in school that footprints not visible to you might be raised by a criminalist, true?
It's possible, yes.
When you saw the glove, did it occur to you that there could be, in that area, either where you had just gone or in the other direction, some footprints that could help identify the person who may have dropped it there?
We have,
Well, I'd like to pursue it. That was
Briefly.
foundational. Yeah.
briefly.
Did it occur to you?
That wasn't on my mind at that time, no.
Did it occur to you that if you walk back and forth, you might damage any existing footprint evidence in the leaves, any latent evidence?
Sustained. We've been through this. This is the third time we've been on it.
I asked you yesterday whether or not you could have, had you chosen to do so, taken the detectives alongside the chain link fence on the other side and shown them the glove by shining your light through it. Could you have done that?
I don't think we could have.
Overruled.
I don't think we could.
Go ahead and answer the question. Sorry.
I don't think any of the detectives, including myself, could see it that well from that location.
Did you make any effort to do that before walking over the footpath?
No.
Did you ever go down the chain link fence on its south side
On the south side of that residence, yes.
of the fence so that you could look back through it to the Simpson property?
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
When did you do that? This is off the Simpson property I'm talking about now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You did walk down to the little garage that's in the home down on to be occupied by Miss Lopez.
Yes.
And how far down did you go?
I went down along the chain link fence, along the whole south border of the Simpson residence and that residence to their north border, which would be the same property line. I walked into the backyard. I didn't see anything or any exposed areas. And I walked back towards the cyclone fence by the building.
When was this?
After I returned from Bundy?
Okay, this is in daylight.
Yes.
But did you ever do that prior to running the detectives down the path to look at the glove?
No.
Did you notice that when you saw the glove, there was an object equidistant from the fence on the other side of the fence? It was very plainly visible through it.
Yes.
Okay. So that presumably if you had chosen to do so, you could have had the detectives look through the fence and had the same vantage point with respect to the glove, couldn't you?
No.
You could not?
No.
What's the difference?
Well, it was very overgrown. It was very dirty. The leaves were very thick in the flower bed area on the other side of the fence. It was very hard to even get in there. I personally tried to get into that area and it was very difficult, very dirty.
Could you do it?
Not by choice.
You mean it was inconvenient?
No, it was unnecessary.
All right. In any event, you are looking at the glove and associating it with the killer and no one else, correct?
I didn't know that, but I think I was leaning towards that, yes.
Well, you certainly didn't think a victim had traipsed over there and dropped that glove there, did you?
I don't know, sir.
Did you ever?
See, he can't even say that. Do you think a victim staggered over there, walked back behind the house, dropped the glove, and what? He can't even say, no, that would be ridiculous. Of course, I thought it was the suspect that did it. God, and it's not just him. So many police officers and so many other witnesses are just contrary because they want to be contrary. They don't want to agree to anything the other side says. And it just makes you look like an idiot. Eve Barlow's Rotten Crotch, we will get to your question here in about 10 minutes. Just want to wrap the video portion of this up, and then I'll get to your question. Don't leave home before you get your answer.
Ever for 1 minute, Detective Fuhrman, while looking at that glove, think, gee, some victim may have dropped this here?
I didn't know anything with the evidence.
I asked you whether or not you thought or even an instant that that might be the product of a victim's travels?
I can't say 100% that it would be a suspect, so there's a small percentage. I said it's a possibility.
Well, what's the ratio, 99 to 1?
I'd probably lean 75-25 with a suspect.
All right. Now, you then proceeded
So
down.
he wants you to believe that in 25% of similar cases, it would be the victim who staggers into a dark space between an overgrown fence and a house and bumps up against an air conditioning unit to drop a glove and then stagger out somewhere to parts unknown. He legit wants you to believe that. Nah, not buying it.
Down a darkened area which you now say had cobwebs at least at the upper section.
Now this here is very, very problematic testimony. This is sort of this is, to me, this is even worse than when he said he saw, when talking about the gloves at the murder scene, when he said them, he saw them by the victim's feet, and then it's later it becomes a glove and another one over on the down the road. That was very, very bad, to refer to gloves as them and then suddenly there's only one of them there. Oh, hey, it's an Aussie Overlord raid. Welcome. But this one here, he's talking about going down the alley. And there's some very important problems with going down this alley. And for those of you just joining, we're watching the cross-examination of Detective Mark Fuhrman in the OJ Simpson trial. He's not doing well, which is why we're watching this.
Possibility.
Well, what's the ratio, 99 to 1?
Listen to this line of questioning.
I'd probably lean 75-25 with a suspect.
All right. Now, you then proceeded down a darkened area which you now say had cobwebs at least at the upper section.
Yes.
When you originally described this venture, you didn't say anything about the cobwebs being only at the upper part of the wall, did you?
Bailey died a year
I think that's the
ago.
only place I felt them, so I wouldn't have gone into anything.
So he's got him to admit he felt cobwebs. And whether it was on his entire body or only on the upper portion, he's very clearly said he felt cobwebs on his face
That
and
wasn't
hands.
my question. My question was, when you earlier described this in July, you didn't mention anything about the location of the cobwebs other than being east of the point where the glove was, correct?
I think that's correct, yes.
All right. Now, would you review with us, please, what you did for the 15 minutes, now 7 after 11, for the 15 minutes that you stayed out there alone after your discovery and before you sought to bring it to the attention of anyone?
Yes.
All right. I'm sure a lot happened in 15 minutes, and I would like you to describe every detail if you can.
I walked slowly down the pathway going east to that potting or that large plant area that's probably 25 foot square.
How long did that take?
That was probably several minutes back there because it's very overgrown. I tried to see where the east property, if there was a fence, it was very overgrown. I'm not sure if it was bushes or ivy. I looked in that area, looked for any evidence of anything that had been dropped or any blood evidence.
Where did you look?
On the ground, on the walls, the plants. I returned back westbound on the path.
Wait just a minute. How much of your 15 minutes was spent back in the small yard that you viewed as a site for potting plants?
Several minutes, probably more than 5.
Since several, like moments, has no real definitive meaning, could you please use minutes or seconds and minutes to describe each step that you took? How many minutes were you present on the far side or east side of the alleyway between the fence and the building?
Talking about the pathway, sir?
You have walked how many feet from the glove to the end of the building?
$75.
Well, if The normal walking rate is 350 feet a minute. What would you think your rate was at that time, that it took you several minutes to go 75 feet?
I didn't testify to that, sir.
I think you just said it took several minutes to get to the end of the building a few moments ago, did you not?
No, I did not.
All right. Tell me now, how long did it take?
Well, I just walked to the end of the building. I spent several minutes back in that area
Okay.
at the end of the bungalows.
Once again, would you try to help us and avoid the use of the word several, which can mean different things to different people? How many minutes was it from the departure of the glove till the time you left the small yard at the back of the building?
5 minutes,
You spent 5 minutes there looking around with your flashlight,
approximately.
look on the wall, the ground, look for blood, and what else?
Anything that looked out of place or something that didn't belong.
Well, if the glove was dropped by a killer, why were you back on the wall looking for blood?
Well, first I was looking for somebody that might have collapsed or left the glove, but I didn't see anything obvious in that area.
Okay. 5 minutes is about what it took to investigate that little yard.
Approximately.
Okay, what did you next do?
Walked back westbound on the path
To where?
to the air conditioner. I looked around that area.
How long did you spend looking around the area of the air conditioner?
I would say a couple minutes, but if I had to bring it down to minutes, 2-3 minutes.
2 or 3 minutes. Tell us what you did during that period to inspect the air conditioner and its surround. What did you look at?
I looked at the air conditioner to see if there's anything disturbed, any blood, anything left there. I shined my light on the blue paper object on the other side of the fence. I looked in that area, I stepped past that area, and then went around where the indentation was farther west.
And how long did you spend there?
Probably more time than I did back in the area where,
In minutes, Detective Fuhrman.
trying to explain, sir.
Yes.
Probably more than that area in the potting area, so I'd probably say in excess of 5 minutes, maybe as many as 7 or 8 minutes.
What did you do?
Just 13 minutes.
5 and 7 minutes by the indentation area, as you call it, to complete your investigation?
I believe there's an electrical box there, and there seems to be I think there's an entry to the underneath of the house. I opened that. I tried to look in there. It was very difficult with my flashlight. It wasn't very powerful. I decided to not go any further. I didn't see any evidence of anything at the entry. The voltage box, I opened that. I looked in that area for any type of physical evidence. I saw none.
Why would
So
you
I
open a
returned to the front of
voltage
the house.
box?
Why were you looking in a voltage box?
I didn't know, sir. I was just looking at any area that could have housed something or somebody.
In a voltage box, you thought there might be somebody in it?
It was a very large voltage box. I didn't know.
It was a very large. See, he can't even just say, I just opened it out of habit. It was just there. I opened it. Do you think there was someone hiding in the voltage? The voltage box is like this. It was a very large voltage box. Just say no. Just say no. I didn't think there was anybody in it. Maybe they stuck a gun in there. Maybe the knife was in there. I was just opening to see if there was any evidence. D. Watt, you're the newest member. Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the clean and sober level. Glad to have you aboard. But see, this is just the stupid shit that he shouldn't be saying. Just say, no, don't be an ass, Bailey. You know there was nobody in it. I just opened it because maybe there was a knife in it. I don't know. I was just opening to see what was in there. Don't say, well, so there was somebody hiding in the box? Well, it was a very large box. I mean, that's just stupid. It's just stupid and ridiculous to say, and it does nothing but hurt him as a witness.
I didn't see any evidence of anything at the entry. The voltage box, I opened that. I looked in that area for any type of physical evidence. I saw none, so I returned to the front of the house.
Why were you looking in a voltage box at that point?
I didn't know, sir. I was just looking at any area that could have housed something or somebody.
In a voltage box, you thought there might be somebody in it?
It was a very large voltage box. I didn't know what was behind it until I
Is that
opened
why
it.
you opened it?
Yes.
Okay. Nobody there?
No.
Did you try to go in the door that's accessible from the footpath?
Which door is that?
On the south side of the house. Did you notice a door there in your 15-minute investigation?
I noticed one on the garage.
Did you notice any door that would lead into the house?
I don't recall if there was one there, no.
Did you try the door that you did see to see if it would open?
No.
You weren't interested in whether the person who dropped the glove might have used that door for egress?
I just didn't try the door. I'm talking about the door in the garage. I don't recall the other door.
But you did spend, by your own estimate, 15 minutes looking around before notifying your superiors of what could be a very important piece of evidence in this case. True?
Yes.
Okay. Now, it is apparent from the way you have described your actions back there that you had not the slightest concern for your own safety. Is that a fair statement?
No.
Again, talking about opening boxes, standing around by an indentation for 7 minutes, looking at flowers, looking at pots. And he said, so you weren't worried about your personal safety? Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. Now he's going to tell us why he was worried about his personal safety.
Well, you didn't do anything to protect it, did you?
Yes.
What?
I'm capable of protecting myself. Once I was committed, I really had no choice but to go forward.
You didn't have the option, having discovered what could well have been the deposit, wittingly or otherwise, of a dangerous killer, to go back and get some help. That option wasn't there?
The option was there.
Why did you decide, Detective Fuhrman, that there was no need to go get one of the guns that was in the house to accompany you?
I don't think it was a need. I think it was a judgment call at that time.
It was a judgment call, Detective Fuhrman, based on the fact that you well knew there was no cause for concern. Isn't that so?
No, it's not so.
Do you ordinarily conduct investigations of what could be a dangerous nature in this fashion?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
And you do not partake of the assistance of your more experienced colleagues when they are available, correct?
If they're immediately available, of course I would.
Well, immediately available, would you say within 30 seconds time satisfies your definition of immediacy?
At that time, no.
Could you not have gone from that glove to the front door or the kitchen in less than a minute? Very, very easily that night, if you had chosen to do so.
Yes, I could have.
Yeah. And the decision not to do so was yours, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Now, did you do anything else during that 15-minute period that you have not yet described to us?
No.
In the studies of blood.
Okay. That's where we'll leave off today. We'll end this here today, and what we'll get to tomorrow is we'll go through basically 3 stages. Not tomorrow, next week. He'll finish up his investigation talking about how he found the glove. Then they move into what did the prosecutors do to prepare you to give your testimony? Did they coach you? Did they go over questions? Did they try to antagonize you so that you could learn to deal with and practice dealing with tough questions designed to get you angry? Did they do this so that if someone questions you about using improper epithets and improper language, that you wouldn't become angry on the stand? And then they move into okay, now let's talk about the bad language that you've been known to use. And so those are the stages that we're going to go through next week. Finding it, being questioned about how he was prepared as a witness, and then ultimately about the words he used. That's the goal, to get through all of that next Thursday. Then the following Thursday, we'll move into the future, when the people that questioned him, the people that accused him of using the racist language and stuff, they take the stand. And then there's a couple of audio tapes. Because the gist of all of this, spoiler alert, is that every time he was confronted with using the N-word, he denied it. He denied ever using that word. So then it becomes a litany of people and tapes of him using the word. And, people say, oh, he was allegedly talking about a film project or a screenwriting project thing he was working on. The question wasn't, did you ever use this word except when working on a screenplay? The question was, did you ever use this word? Did you ever say this to this person? If anybody comes and says you used this word, they are de facto unequivocally a liar. And he said, yes, I have never used it. I would never describe people. I would never do. And then, of course, you bring the witnesses and the tapes. And that's what we'll get to the week after next. And then we'll move on to Dennis Fung and Barry Scheck. Let's bump this off here. But we have a few super chats and other comments to get through here. Jeff Gann says, you're going to play the recorded tapes with the screenwriter. Only the ones that are allowed in evidence. There's I believe 4. The other 30, there was essentially 40 times he dropped the N-bomb on the recorded tapes. We're only going to use the two or 3 or 4 that I can't remember the exact number that were entered into evidence, because I like my channel. Notes on a phone said, I would say on a whole to the public, this one is assault. Let's get back to, we're going to push pause on this question and we'll get back, because I want to handle the last 2 things together after this. Michelle W., the attorney is just making this guy look like a fool. If he didn't have the alleged past history and evasiveness in his answers, Bailey might just look like a blowhard. You are absolutely right. Absolutely correct. It would look like he was beating up on a police officer who did his job. And the whole N-word controversy that we're going to get into for the next 2 weeks, for the next 2 Thursdays, I should say, could all have gone away if, when he said, do you use this word? I have used it before, but not directed towards anyone. Have you ever used this word anytime in the last 10 years? I have, but it was in the context of using accurate street language in preparing a screenplay. He could easily have avoided this situation by being candid and upfront. It still may cut into his credibility, but it would have done a whole hell of a lot less damage than it did by completely and bald-faced lying about it. So the next thing, go back to notes on a plane. I would say on a whole to the public, this one is a solved crime. They got the right guy, but he got away with it. Again, I would say they got at least one of the right guys, maybe, perchance, but he got away with it. That leads into the next question that Eve Barlow's Rotten Crotch posed in this super chat. What is more important, winning or justice? I think that's a false. I mean, that's it's the fallacy of the excluded middle. There's other choices than just those 2. Winning is important if it does justice. Justice is important, win or lose, but more importantly, and again, part of the reason we're watching this is the idea that they want to take OJ Simpson's freedom and rights away for the rest of his natural life. If the government wants to do that, if the prosecution wants to take away your rights for the rest of your life, for a significant number of years, or even take away your life, they had better be prepared with their case, a straightforward, well-documented, unbiased, unadulterated, absolutely rock solid performance of their duties. You can't frame people. You can't plant evidence. You can't have witnesses telling lies on the stand. You can't do these things. You cannot have, even if somebody did it, it's the old axiom that we have in law that it's better that 100 guilty people go free than one innocent person be wrongfully convicted. We have a huge number of wrongfully convicted people in the United States, and I assume around the world. But when the government wants to take away your rights, they have to be held to that standard of presenting their evidence and presenting it in such a fair, unbiased way that you are found guilty of committing that crime beyond a reasonable doubt. Honestly, fairly, justly. That is an absolute requirement. And if you can't do that, guilty or innocent, the person should be allowed to walk. Why? Because of those innocent people that are wrongfully convicted. If they come after someone who may have done it, but they don't present their case fairly, they hide evidence, you destroy evidence, you plant evidence, you have the bad cops, you put liars on the stand, you do these improper things to get a conviction, to get the win. If you do that to someone who's guilty, what is going to stop the prosecution from cutting those same corners in a case where you happen to find yourself in that situation? You're wrongfully accused of something. You know the evidence is in your favor. Suddenly, those same police, those same prosecutors, those same witnesses that got away with doing it before, they're now doing it to you. And you're stuck. That is why, regardless of who did it, regardless of whether or not that defendant is guilty or innocent, it is the state's responsibility to honestly, justly, fairly, legally prove by an overwhelming amount of evidence such that it goes beyond any reasonable doubt you can have to take away your freedom, your life. That's it. I mean, that's the bottom line. Again, winning or justice isn't a fair breakdown of that question. I get your question. I know why you're asking it, but it's the process. It's the burden of responsibility that is on the government before someone can step in, take away your life, take away years of your life, take away your entire life behind bars. Before they can do that, they must prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And it doesn't mean any doubt whatsoever. It's a reasonable doubt where you go, perhaps that happened. If they didn't explain why that couldn't have happened that way, they haven't met the burden of proof. That's the answer to the question when people go, before I ended up in the maritime law deal, I was going down one of two paths: international law, or I wanted to be at the Salt Lake City Public Defender's Office. The international guys offered me the job first, so I took it. But even then, and even today, how can lawyers represent people they know they're guilty? Well, first of all, if you know they're guilty, if they say I'm guilty and I did it, you cannot argue in court that they did not do it. That's why a good lawyer will never, ever, ever ask his client if he did it. Because once he knows, he can't unknow it. But how do you represent someone you know is guilty? Well, then you just have to work with that. If you know they're guilty, you can't argue that they didn't do it. You can argue there's problems with evidence collecting, things like that, but you can also argue, okay, my guy did it. Now, what are the mitigating factors, and try to get a reduced sentence or whatnot. Or the more important question is, how do you defend someone you think is guilty? That's how you do it. That guy, someone who did something, has exactly the same rights, has exactly the same position with respect to the prosecution proving their case. They have the same benefits, rights, and presumption of innocence as you do, who did nothing wrong. We're equal in the eyes of the law. We are innocent until proven guilty, and you have the burden of representing your client to the best of your ability to make sure that the prosecution is held to their burden of proof. So, how's that for an answer? That Eve Barlow's rotten crotch. That's my rant answer for today. No, yeah, you decided, well, I got my money's worth from that super chat. Yeah, you did. All right. Well, as injustice to the guilty doesn't seem so bad until it leads to injustice for you, your friends, your family. Exactly. That's the calmer way of saying what I was saying. The Fugitive. End of argument about innocent people being wanted in prison, etc. And as we know, F. Lee Bailey was the lawyer for the real doctor in The Fugitive. Way to bring that full circle. Great job there. Notes on a phone. So there you have it. That's the end of this week. We didn't quite get to the 4 hours of our 2 hour of our 2 hour stream. But we got where I wanted to get. It just took about an hour and a half longer than I wanted it. Than I planned on it. And everybody that stuck around for the whole thing, wow. Those of you that popped in and popped out, that's great that you did it. Great to have you here. Okay, we'll wrap this up by talking about a few things that are up and coming. 23, well, I guess it's 22 hours from now at 11 a.m. Eastern on Friday, 4 p.m. London, midnight my time, and 1 a.m. Australia time. I will be here for a Friday law rant. There's a lot of legal stories that have been piling up that I just feel need a good solid rant. And that's what we'll be doing. It's the last day of the month, so it will be kind of the end of the month minor grift, but it's not a grift show. But it's Friday, so I'll accept drink shots. That's what we're doing tomorrow. On Friday. Friday will be the law rant. Friday night US time, Saturday morning Korea time will be the unexplained. And who the special guest will be for that particular day will be revealed at that time. Farron is taking some time off. She's out doing concerts and things. So we'll have a special guest for the unexplained Friday night US time, Saturday morning. Then Monday will be Maritime Monday, unless there's something weird that happens between now and then. Tuesday, I don't know. Wednesday, haven't decided yet. And then we'll go back to Thursday with OJ Simpson and Friday with the unexplained. So that'll take us up for the next week. No. Next week, next Friday, 1 week from tomorrow, is my 25,000 subscriber drunken grift stream, the Fuck It Friday stream, where we just say, fuck it. We talk about whatever we want. We talk about the stupid stories. We talk about dumb people on the internet. I'm sure we'll be talking about boozy a lot during that night. And because it's boozy, we need the boozy bucks. And that's my hardcore grift stream, where I grift to liberate all of you from your money 1 day a month in super chats and drinks. And that's my drunk stream. We all know about it. We all find it amusing. And then I suffer the next day, but it's worth it because I don't have to super grift during the rest of the month. So set your calendars, make notes that a week from Friday will be the Fuck It Friday 25,000 subscriber festival. And there should hopefully be some, big names in LawTube and whatnot popping in to say hi. Lots of invitations have been sent out. Few people have been returned. Others are going to pop in as accessible. So stick around. Oh, D What at the last minute gives 5 Legal Vices memberships. Who gets them? Right Wing Extremist. Congratulations. You get a gifted membership. Ms. Amanda, congrats. Jen Harold, Gina Hudson, and Jovi's mom. Boom. Yes, you made the cut, Right Wing Extremist. So there we go. Those are the things to look forward to. I wouldn't miss any of them. Even the 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday next week, where I really don't know what I'm doing yet. I wouldn't miss those because I'll think of something awesome and brilliant, I'm sure. So yes, everyone's lining up for the Fuck It Fridays. It's going to be wild. Save your shekels, bring your cash, throw it at me on that day more than any other day because dun dun dun. It'll be fun. Winning reality. We'll have to get something together with Farron. I've already got the special guest lined up for this week, and Farron should be back the following week. But we should talk and quite possibly try to do something. So our boomer shots will be given. I hope so, because that's the super special grift night, and I have chosen the whiskey I will be drinking. Because as you know, being a whiskey aficionado, it freaks me out to do shots unless it's just some rot gut that I don't care about, that has very little taste or value. But I made the deal last time that however much money I bring in on that Fuck It Friday, I will buy a whiskey equivalent to 25% of the amount that I brought in. And that happens to be $200. And so I have to keep my promise, I have to get a $200 bottle of whiskey and just do shots from it. And those of you that know me know that will crush me worse than anything else, to disrespect whiskey like that. The bottle I've chosen, unfortunately, Korea has some really outrageous alcohol taxes. It's 162% alcohol tax on most whiskeys. So the bottle I have chosen is an exquisite blended Scotch from an amazing whiskey company, Compass Box. Compass Box Hedonism is a remarkable whiskey. It's a remarkable $200 whiskey here. And that will be the one that we do shots with on Fuck It Friday, just to drive another stake in my heart. And we'll do the same offer. 25% of whatever comes in at the super ultra mega boozy Fuck It Friday, 25% of that will go to the next month's. So if the heavens rain down and I get $10,000, which is never going to happen, obviously, but if someone won the lottery and threw 10 grand at me, then I would have to buy a $2,500 bottle of whiskey and use it for the next one. So see, those are the ones I would never drink these anyway, but if I was, these were the ones that you would shoot. Not I'm so glad that Malort isn't here. We did one a couple of months ago, the yellow corn. That's probably as close to Malort as you're going to get. And I still can't bring myself to buy another bottle of that for any reason. White Claw doesn't exist here either, thankfully. But that's what it is. No, there actually there is some whiskey. There's going to be a tie-in. There's going to be a tie-in with the Whiskey and Shipwrecks coming up very soon on a Maritime Monday, probably 2 or 3 weeks from now. So that will be the bottle of whiskey that I painfully and grudgingly take shots from next Fuck It Friday on the 7th of October. An absolutely divine Compass Box Hedonism. So stand by, bring your money, and let's see what happens. Mark Wright asked a question here. Yes, are you going to cover the Waukesha Christmas parade guy? Judge is letting him represent himself as a sovereign citizen. That might be one of the things I do on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. It definitely requires a rant because things like that anger me. So, yeah. Notes on a plane. So whiskey galore stream then, surely. If you're talking about the Fuck It Friday, hope so. Bring the money, I bring the whiskey, and we all get along. But if it's the if it's the Whiskey Monday, Maritime Monday thing we're talking about, there may be a drink or two going down. So, yeah. All right, guys. It is now nearly 2 a.m. here in the Republic of Korea. That's the good Korea, not the bad one. Not the one with the Ronri leader. Flux, you took next Friday off. That's very awesome. I'm happy you took it off too. So I hope you still have some money left over from selling your house. Just kidding, sort of. I love you, Flux. You're awesome. So, all right, folks, thank you all for being here. Hit the like button on your way out. Please don't forget to do that. Fuck it is the best philosophy ever, and we especially do that on our once a month Friday. Kath, if you visit Korea, you're absolutely going to send you our local alcoholic beverage, the sweet and the gross. Oh, that sounds like Malort. All righty. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. That would be awesome. We will say good night to Yoda and Strawberry. They are both sleeping. Yoda is sleeping underneath the desk, and I think, yep, you can see Strawberry's kind of brown fur there behind the sliding door. They are both sleeping peacefully, and I'm going to wake them up. All right. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, join to be a member if that's what you want to do. And thank you for all of the super chats that came in tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the mods for keeping us under control, for hanging out, for keeping the conversation going. Thank you to all of you in the chat. Couldn't do it without you. Would have no reason to do it if you weren't here. Until tomorrow night at midnight my time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, and all time zones in between and thereafter. Have an awesome night. Have an awesome day, an afternoon, an evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. I can't wait to see you again. We'll catch you tomorrow. And don't forget to enjoy your legal vices. Bye.